Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor has called the meeting to order. Mayor Davey,
Here.
Councilmember Kaplan,
Here.
Councilmember Laredo,
Here.
Vice Mayor London, Vice Mayor McCormick,
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Moss, Councilmember Segurola.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum. The first item on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, is an invocation by Father Andrew Fulton, St. Agnes Catholic Church.
Welcome, Father. All rise.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders your people need. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence your creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of human person. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness and love. Amen.
Amen. Amen. We stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is brief comments by council.
Okay, I'll start off. First of all, Happy New Year to all of you. I hope we have a very productive and positive new year. You know, I wasn't sure if I was going to say anything about what happened last week in Washington. We've been talking while we were at dinner. And I just, you know, I want you all to know, we've had some heated discussions up here and we've had disagreements, but what I really appreciate about this council is we're all in this for the best of intentions. With the best of intentions, we're all in this together, and we are all trying to work for the best result for all Key Biscayners. We've all obviously abided by the results of elections. We've all understood that we owe an oath not only to our charter, but to the state of Florida, as well as the Constitution of the United States. And I expect us all to live up to those things. And I want to thank each and one of you for doing what you do. This is a hard job. It's difficult. You can be abused for just sitting up here, but I know you all have the best of intentions and you do the best job you can. And it reminded me, frankly, as disappointed as I was in what happened and in what those people did in going to insurrection, it reminds me of just how special the thing is that we are all just a small part of, and what we're doing matters, and we have to keep going. So I would say let's keep at it and let's do the best we can for everybody.
May I add just a thought? Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone. We have important and compelling good reasons to hope for very good things to happen in 2021. To follow on what Mayor Davies said, it seems to me a good time to mention the principle that there is such a thing as objective truth, and that we as citizens at every level better have the capacity and the responsibility to grasp it and to be guided by it, and also the self-discipline and respect for others and adherence to laws and standards of behavior that befit a healthy society. That's our calling as citizens.
Any other brief comments? Okay, let's move on.
Next item, Mr. Mayor's public comments.
Okay, Pete, if you can, do we have any public comments?
Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, if you wish to speak, sir, we do have one raised hand.
Okay.
It is phone number ending in 062.
Caller, sorry, go ahead, Pete.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
You can state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
All right, caller, if you wish to speak, please dial *6 now to unmute yourself.
Also, just if you are a hired consultant or village employee and or engaged in lobbying activities and or representing an organization, please state so for the record.
And caller, you are live.
This is Ed Stone, 170 Ocean Lane Drive. I'm calling to ask your support for the seniors on the Key in the movement towards helping to get us all registered to get our shots. A number of us have had very good experiences at some of the hospitals, the University of Miami, Jackson, and Baptist, but the registration process has been extremely frustrating and scary for many. So we're hoping that the village can take over the responsibility, and I believe Melissa White at the foundation has begun this work, and I don't know where it is in the village, but somewhere, where we can register the people who would like to get into the line and then be transported to the facility for the pickup or for the shot. And if any of you have had to try to get an appointment, and I know Councilman London indicated he's tried, it's very, very, very frustrating. And if we can take that away from each of us as an individual and put it into the community and create a somewhere that we know that it's being done. I mean, it's very, very frustrating. Anybody who's tried it will know what it's like. So those are my comments. I think transportation is another very important part of it. Once we get an appointment, which may not be right away, but we'll have the appointment, and then we need to transport the seniors to the appointment in a very secure type vehicle, i.e. with a glass partition between the driver and the participants. I mean, we've been in lockdown for a year, so driving with someone who we're not sure, could be a real problem. So those are my comments. I'm hoping you can take it. I know it's on your agenda tonight. I just think it's a big deal. And I know Melissa's been working on it. She's trying to negotiate with one of the hospitals to let us sign up with them. But the big thing is for we seniors not to have to be frustrated. I was up too many hours trying to get on, and it was very difficult. So those are my comments, and I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next caller.
Mr. Mayor, I currently don't have anyone else requesting to speak.
Okay. Okay, let's move on.
Mike, can you ask Pete to check the voice? I'm having a problem. It's so good for a while, and then it starts getting inaudible. I can't understand it.
Okay, I'll ask him. Pete, are you getting that? Can you check on that, please? I think it's probably your feed.
I'll see what I can do, but from my end, it's unlimited.
All right. It may be your reception, Ed. Next item, Madam Manager, or Madam Clerk, sorry.
Just static.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is the agenda approvals, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
Okay, does anybody have any additions or deletions? Councilmember Laredo, I believe you had one.
Yes, I wanted to, at the December 8th meeting, I had taken the initiative to have a follow-up to our workshop and review and changing the names and cleaning up all of the boards. And it was deferred to the 26th.
Correct.
Upon your request. And I think that this one should be deferred to that, so we take all of them together.
Makes sense to me.
As a whole.
Okay. So that'd be 10,
So
10B.
10B.
10B would be deferred till the next meeting to be included with the other items that'll be on for regarding boards and committees.
I'll move it.
Well, is that the only one? Does anybody else have any additions or deletions? All right.
Peter Nell is coming in.
Okay. Let's seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nothing we can do about that.
All right. We're going to mute the Caribbean. All right. We have a special presentation from Commissioner Regalado. She's supposed to get on at 6:30. So what we'll do is when she's ready, when she's available, when she's on the call, we'll bring her back in. I think that's okay with everybody.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
Second. I have a brief question just to understand in English. On the December 15 minutes, I had to get off before the decision, and at the last sentence, there was the consent of the council to execute agreement with Berkeley Group using the limited scope that was present. But I literally don't understand it. There were two groups, right? Berkeley and her. They're one and the same, or
They're two different
They're
groups.
two different groups. They're
so
one.
that needs to be cleared up. It doesn't read right.
It doesn't.
Well,
To execute agreement with the Berkeley Group using their limited scope that was presented.
maybe that'd be as presented, as well
And
as
then Annie Hoffman. I don't.
Connie Hoffman.
Connie, or maybe the Berkeley Group and Connie Hoffman using the limited scope that's
It needs to be
presented
just-
because they both had a limited scope from their original presentation.
As-
But I agree with you. It doesn't, Connie
Okay.
Hoffman doesn't read in years to come like you know what that would mean.
using
Yeah,
their
and
limited.
this implies expenditures. I think we should have it clear so people understand.
That's fine. With the Berkeley Group
Just
and
a clean-
Connie Hoffman using their limited group, using their limited scopes as presented respectively, as respectively presented. Is that fine?
As presented respectively.
Presented respectively.
That improves it.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. All those in favor? I'm sorry.
Move the agenda.
It's already, yeah, it's
consent.
moved and seconded, so this is just discussion. Anybody moved and, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Resolution 2016-2017 as amended by adopting revised special rules of procedure for meetings of the Village Council, providing for confirmation and ratification, and providing for an effective date.
Move it.
I'll second it. So I brought this, and just so we're clear, my suggestion is number 10 is located in number 10 and nowhere else. Basically, what Chad did, and I appreciate this. We've had many resolutions passed over the years as a council, and so this resolution encompasses all of those changes that have been ratified into one resolution. So that was part of it. And then another part was just to, sort of clean up and give us more finiteness and more clarity as to what we're doing and dial down into what our respective speaking times are. I modeled it on what goes on in Congress, ironically. And in terms of in terms of having each of us having 2 5-minute opportunities to speak on action items and then 3 minutes each on non-action items. So we're not just going around all night without getting any definition. Now, if we have an item where we all agree that we want to expand it, we want to allow for another round, we want to allow people to continue, we can do that as a body. But the intent of this was to give us just a little more regimentation and a little more structure than we have had. So that's why I proposed this. I certainly welcome all your comments and questions.
I don't know, Mayor, if the city council, city attorney share with you my input, or should I do it now? Or
No, please. No, they did not.
Chad, did you?
No, I mentioned that you were going to be raising
Right.
some concerns, but I didn't actually get into the detail. So I'm sorry.
The only thing I wanted to add somewhere is that to the effect, I'll read something that I didn't have time to put it in perfect. That while this serves as a guideline for efficiency and civility, no part therein shall be construed as a limitation of any council's rights to fully explain, etc., his position. And as co-equal elected representative of the voters of Key Biscayne, no one council member can defray or limit that capacity. It is not inconsistent with how the rest of it is, but I wanted to make it clear so that we made some mistakes in the past that were not very pleasant, and we're not going to refresh the past. But sometimes it cannot be construed as any limitation.
No, I don't think any one council member should be able to. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I think, no, it would take.
And perhaps some language, I had given some to Chad, but it's the spirit is that I don't have any. It's, we do 99% of the time are doing okay. And now we got to know each other better and we're moving in the right direction. But I just want to make sure that this is not a constraint on freedom of speech, particularly as elected officials. It's just it's an effort to, I just want to make it plain that's that right and that obligation is, after all, it's overall basically our single most important obligation is to represent and voice the voices of the people who we think we represent. That should not be curtailed in any way. I do not believe it's contradictory. I just have to have one of the legal mind just come up with the right, nice, soft words, not. And I thought Chad was going to do that, but it was late today.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you a question about
Councilmember
that? Councilmember Laredo, can I just ask you, I think I understand your point, but would you consider having this language in here of a limitation of number of minutes as standard practice as a limitation? Like, or is what you're proposing overruling that?
Yeah, I like the word guideline rather than limitation. Limitation implies a right over anybody, either myself or any one of us, 7, which is at the end of the day, as per the charter, we're equal to in any way limit each other. I think it's a guideline and I agree with it. And we're moving, and you can't, I'm from the school, you can't legislate morality, nor can you legislate good manners and civility. Sometimes we get off it, but generally we get back. I've had some bad experiences at the beginning. I think we're all on the line now, but it needs to be clear that this is not in any way curtailed within reason. And without, obviously, it's not intended to prolong the meeting. It is intended to make sure that people understand that it does not. If it takes me more than 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or we cannot be straitjacketed in our most fundamental obligation, which is to represent, and the only way to represent is to voice the opinions, whether one likes it or not, for those who we feel voted for us.
And do you feel like it's insufficient being able to request from a majority of the rest of the council for more time? The way it's written here?
Yes, what I'm talking about is I did not want to get into this. That's why I tried to channel it through our attorney. I'm not so much, and I appreciate it in one incident when that happened and you did that. I was concerned about cutting people off, turning microphones off, or adjourning in the middle of a sentence. That kind of thing, which is fine. It's done. You will recall those incidents, and there's a lot of us to blame. It's not any one person. I don't want to ever see that again. It literally be cut off But I didn't want to make this too public. I just think this. I wanted to share with you the spirit of moving forward constructively.
But you're okay with this language in there the way that it is, with
Yeah,
the
I just don't
addition of
understand
yours.
the 3 minutes versus the 5. But if that's
Well,
what
it would
you
be the
feel.
difference of like where on the agenda and what type of item it is, right? Like we have action items, resolutions and ordinances, then we have
Yeah.
action items like discussion items, which
I don't
that's
have a
where
problem
I
with that.
actually feel like we
I'm striking at the spirit. Yeah, I'm striking at the spirit of a prima facie obvious statement that no one of us or groups of us can limit our freedom of speech, and clearly as elected officials of equal co-weight cannot limit that. But these things are not inconsistent, Ms. McCormick. I just think it's worth putting it. I would call it in soft language rather than legalistic language.
Chad, do you have any ideas of what that would look like?
I just read some of it, but I didn't. We asked, while this serves as a guideline to for efficiency and civility, no part therein or thereof shall be construed as a limitation of any council's right to fully explain and express the concerns of the people he represents. And no, as co-equal elected officials, no one member of this council shall in any way curtail that right. But I'm flexible on this, on the language. It's sort of a policy statement. Right. Chad, you can jump anytime you want. or I certainly move it if you, with that. I know that Segurola.
Yeah, I saw Ignacio.
Yep.
Ignacio, Councilmember Segurola, and then we'll go to Chad and see what his thoughts are.
Two observations. Number one, maybe I'm alone in this, but I've always wondered why the manager's report comes in at the end of the meeting. I've always kind of wanted it to be at the beginning of the meeting, since a lot of it ends up affecting a lot of the items that are on the agenda. I don't know if you guys would be willing to consider moving that. I think it's currently set for 10 p.m. now, but I wouldn't mind it having right at the beginning. And
it's actually just 8 p.m. It's 8 p.m. now. I understand. I think you're right on this, by the way. I think I'd support it, but it's set for 8 p.m. No later than 8 p.m.
I thought I saw it at 10 p.m. So
the rules are adopted say 10. It have never been formally adopted to move it to 8. So Ignacio's.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It says so. Just for future reference, I would prefer the manager's report come in as early as possible in the meeting. And number two, given what Councilmember Laredo just said, just as a practical matter, who's going to be watching the clock on time while people are speaking?
I would be the chair of the meeting, so it would be me, except when I'm speaking, then I guess it would fall to the vice mayor or somebody staying in the vice mayor's stead at that time.
Okay. And do we have the setup to have clocks running on and off?
Yeah, we've got a timer. We've got a timer here. I mean, we've got the timer here in the chambers. And again, it's to give us more structure. I don't want to, if you're in the middle of a thought, and I know what Councilmember Laredo's talking about, and I understand that. I understand his concerns, and I want to speak to those. So I'd like to hear what Chad has to say. But certainly, if somebody's in the middle of a thought, it'll be more of a. I mean, I guess, and Councilmember Laredo tried to step in at the last meeting to shut somebody down for me, and the person had more time. But there are times where I will let somebody get to their 3 minutes and then continue with the thought to a certain point. But I'm trying to give it structure. Everybody has the right to everybody who comes before us. Residents and council members have the freedom of speech, and they have the right to say whatever they want to us. And we should allow them as much speech as possible. This is, I want to be clear, this is not an intent in any way, shape, or form to limit anybody's right to free speech. I just wanted to give us a little bit more structure in how we go. Although I take, what Councilmember Laredo has said, and there should be a guideline. I think that's really, pragmatically speaking, that's how we have operated. We just have not had.
But Mayor, I would say, yeah, I'm very focused on us 7. I think
I understand. I totally understand. I absolutely understand that.
On the other stuff, I do think, as a chief would probably laugh because I'm a big strict enforcement guy, that when you have the public with it, sometimes you're going to have to play, you know, one of the bad things of being mayor and running the meeting is you have to be the bad guy. You got
one of them.
Because then people start complaining, he let him speak for 7 minutes, and because he's a friend, and you know, you have to just say that. But I was referring to us.
I understood what you're saying. I was just trying to incorporate.
If Chad would help us, we can get through.
Absolutely. Chad, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that the first part of Councilmember Laredo's statement was very good. The second part, I think, is good also, but I don't think it's needed. I think it's self-evident to that point that everyone is equal. I don't think we have to, you know.
Okay, that's fine with me, so that we can move on, because I see our commissioner on. It's fine with me. Can I move it with that amendment? And I trust you to
certainly
capture the spirit of what I said as a soft language to that effect.
I'm fine in doing that.
Okay, I'll second that amendment, and then Councilmember McCormick had one more point, and then I was going to go to the commissioner.
Ignacio, my question was actually about you and the manager's report. I just wanted to make sure that we got this right, how we want it. I think when we moved it up to 8, although it sounds like we didn't do it officially, but when we did it in practice, we did not move it before ordinances and resolutions, because we felt that members of the public often come to speak on those topics and to hear the results. Are you okay with it at 8, or would you like it to be immediately after ordinances and resolutions, no matter what time?
To be honest, I mean, I wouldn't even mind it being before ordinances and resolutions. I mean, I understand your reasoning. It's just, I think a lot of residents would benefit from hearing the manager's report, because they usually deal with a lot of the questions that we get on a daily basis. You know, where's this? Where are we with that? But if not, I would say as early as possible. Right, if not before, then right after resolutions and ordinances.
So like 11A.
At the latest, correct.
Okay, I think that makes sense, because while I agree with you, there are times that the manager's report will spin into some pretty lengthy discussion. And when you have a crowded council chambers of people waiting for an ordinance or a resolution, that can become kind of tedious. But so maybe we try it and we could revisit it.
Yeah, given what you just said, yeah, maybe as 11A. And a lot of times what the manager has to say goes into whatever discussion items we have. So 11A would probably work well.
Okay. Josh, you got that?
Call the question.
Yeah. Well, I had two more quick points by Councilmember Moss and Councilmember Kaplan, and then I want to get to our commissioner. Never mind.
I can't hear.
Can't hear him. He said items number 8 and 9. Yeah, I can hear you because I'm in the same room.
Items number 8 and 9 should, the word should, for consistency with everything else, it should be shall. And a question about item 10, where an ordinance is the action item, this prohibits the public being called upon until all of the council members have had their say. But almost always the ordinance involves a public hearing for the public to speak before the discussion.
That's a great point.
By
the way, that wasn't my change. That was already in the rules. I just
this is our current rules.
So subsequent to, one second for discussion, subsequent to the public being called.
I think for ordinances,
right.
That's what we should do.
All right. Can we table this for just right now? I'd like to have.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was going to suggest.
Commissioner is going to be. She went to Pinecrest first, and I won't hold that against her. But it's all good. So we're glad to have her here. Commissioner Regalado, welcome. Happy New Year.
Thank you. I went to Pinecrest first, so I could spend more time.
Well played. Well spun. Nicely done. Like judo.
That's retail politics.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Key Biscayne. Congratulations. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, first and foremost, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. I mean, now we're all meeting virtually, but once we're all in chambers, I'm happy to do it. I'm here for every single one of your meetings. One of the things that I pledged to you guys when I ran is that I would be accessible, and we started kind of sending information that we got on septic to sewer. And now you'll be the beneficiary of brand new county news. We just got our committee assignments, and I am the chair of infrastructure.
That's great.
Very happy to hear that.
That's great.
Yes, very excited because we get to work on WASA, and obviously that's a huge issue for this district. We have so many problems with septic to sewer, and we have so many needs. I'm also on the Parks Committee, so excited about that because we have Crandon and Matheson and so many great parks. And one of the things that I'm working on that you guys are going to see in the February agenda for Miami-Dade County is a great project in terms of connectivity for District 7. So we're really doing a heavy lift so that we can connect all the trails and all the parks. It really is going to be wonderful. And I wanted, first and foremost, to talk to you guys about what we're bringing to the January 20th meeting. So we're bringing a few issues. One has to do with collecting data on evictions. There's going to be a second piece to this in February on foreclosures. Right now, the county was not receiving eviction data, and it's important because of the pandemic and what's happening with the CDC moratorium. But I think that the county should be making all of its decisions in terms of affordable housing, and then also for the homeless trust from data. Right. So what this item does is it directs the clerk to provide the county auditor with the data for commercial and residential evictions on a monthly basis. And then the auditor is going to put together a report. He's also going to add the information from the sheriff as to the writs that are outstanding and the writs that have been effectuated. That report is going to be provided 4 days before the end of the month to the county commission, and then we will be providing it to you because it will be broken down by region. So you'll be able to see what's going on in the world of evictions and later foreclosures in your area. I think it's important for us, when making decisions as policyholders, to make it, from things that are actually happening in real time. And this will also go to the homeless trust so that they can prepare. And then we will use the data in order to ask for funding and ask for assistance as we go into the legislative session in Tallahassee and also in Washington, D.C. So I'm excited about that piece. We got information today from the state that the governor accepted the stimulus funding for rent relief. I've been talking at the county about my concerns in terms of the lack of rent relief and how the CARES Act money was used to focus on that piece of the pandemic. Luckily, the money that we've gotten for the state is over $1 billion. It is earmarked and it appears to be tailored exactly like the CDC. So there are going to be limitations in terms of income that are going to be difficult to navigate. But that being said, we should have more information by the end of the month. And as soon as we have it, I'll be sending it to you all. And we're also getting more information on PPP and what funding we're getting for vaccines. So I'll leave the vaccine questions to the end because I'm sure everyone has vaccine questions, and I'm happy to fill you in on what we're talking about at the county. But you will be seeing a lot more information in the next few weeks regarding, what's happening in Washington, what money we're getting. And then also we did have our legislative priorities for Tallahassee. The committee started this week. We're actually going to be physically in Tallahassee, February and March. And obviously the session starts in March. Our number one priority is septic to sewer, but we have other priorities, which include PACE. PACE is important because for Key Biscayne, it also includes seawalls. And, we'll be talking a little bit more about that in the future. But that's a significant piece. And one of the things we want to give people as much flexibility as possible, especially since the pandemic is hurting their credit and the PACE program is not based on credit, but rather on the property, right? So it's going to be a necessary vehicle. It's not a be all and end all, but it's a piece to the puzzle as we deal with this issue moving forward. So we're going to be talking about that. I'm also bringing an item to the County Commission January 20th that hopefully we will launch in April. If approved by the County Commission. This is near and dear to my heart. It's actually the largest inclusion program for adults and children with neurodiversity across several departments. We're doing libraries, parks, transit, police, and fire. And once it's approved, I will bring it to you all. We're actually partnering with NSU Card. It will involve the cities. We're going to be providing you with all the social stories and the signage. The idea is to create a comprehensive system across Miami-Dade County where people that are neurodivergent will see the same signage. Their caregivers can access social stories. And then a very important piece to this, NSU Card will be training every single employee that comes into contact with a neurodivergent person. That means all the STS drivers, all the security guards, the police officers, fire. It really is a huge undertaking, but we're very excited to do it. And we really believe that it's going to be a model for other counties that really want to go beyond just talking about neurodivergence and really doing something substantial to include them in our public spaces. So we're very excited about that. The library is going to roll out amazing stuff in terms of resources, and we'll be reaching out to you all regarding that, hopefully when it's approved on January 20th. So we got a Bay officer, Irela Bargrit, and now we're going to get to the business of Biscayne Bay. And that looks like it's going to happen in February. I've actually put in legislative requests, but there's a hold from another commissioner. So it's probably going to have to wait to our committee meetings in February for us to hash it out in the sunshine and figure out what we're going to put on the agenda for February and March. But I'm hoping to get it done before the legislative session starts in March so that we can show Tallahassee that we're moving forward. So if you guys have any questions on that, I also spoke to Alice Bravo on your signalization, and I will give you the exact quote on what I was told. As of 5 o'clock today, when it comes to your signalization, the deal is that all the equipment is in, the controllers, the detection. All you need to complete is the permitting and the inspection, and we should be good to go.
That's good news.
That's
let
great
me know.
news. No, please. All right, good.
All right. With anything.
Why am I feeling so optimistic?
Does anybody have any questions?
Permitting yet. We have to go through permitting first.
I'm happy to help.
We know the commissioner. That's okay now.
Yes, we're gonna have to call you.
Yes, happy to help. You guys just let me know anything that you need. And look, even if we have to get folks out there, the good news is Alice is staying until the end of March. So, you know, if we need a field trip, we'll have a field trip, right? But the idea is to get everything done as soon as possible so that we don't get like stuck in some transition.
Perfect. That's awesome. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't know if this is a question for Commissioner Regalado, and by the way, congratulations from me as well. And I'm looking forward to engaging with you again, as we did in the past. The question that occurred to me is whether the PACE financing could apply to the septic.
Yes, that's what we're doing. We're trying to change it so that it can also apply to septic. Now, the report is important because the houses that are near laterals, we're talking about 7,500. You know, we could probably figure that out. The ones in areas like Pinecrest that are very far, we're talking about 40, 45, 50, right? So, you know, that's a heavy lift on PACE. But one of the things that we're looking at as we work on the financing, we're also going to be looking at changing the bonding definitions for WASA. WASA has this, you know, odd restriction that they can't use their bond money to bring in new users. So that's one of the things that we're looking at changing. Because obviously with new users, you can have a revenue bond, right? And interest rates are really low. So we may not need to put all of it, you know, on a geo bond. So we're going back and forth about that kind of stuff internally at the county. But the idea is to use PACE if necessary for the connection from the street to the house, right? So try to keep it under a few $1,000s. So it's something that spread out over 20 years isn't that painful, and it's tied to the house, not to someone's credit. But there's some other commissioners who believe that, you know, PACE can carry the whole load. PACE does have the financing to carry $1 billion. I just don't think that homeowners are going to go for that. I think they'll do a piece of it, but I doubt that they're gonna do that much. But we'll see as we move forward. The first, so that you know, I mean, the first piece is going to be the registration of the septic tanks, then the inspection of the septic tanks, And while we're doing those two things, we're going to be dealing with the financing piece.
Okay. It'll be useful to try to get PACE more broadly understood and utilized. It's a good program, but it's not sufficiently utilized.
What's that?
Well, that's why.
Oh, I don't see it. Where's that?
Well, that's why.
I don't see it. Where's that?
We're like, there's a lot.
Yeah, we just froze.
Like, there's a lot.
Yeah, we just
It's the
froze.
mayor.
Mikey? Michael? Mike?
Yes, Councilmember, Vice Mayor, you're recognized. Councilmember, Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
Congratulations, Commissioner Regalado. One question, assuming that all the septic tanks tomorrow connected up to the sewer system, do we have the capacity in this processing the sewage to take care of the septic tanks? I don't.
Well, right now, they're saying that we do. Right now, they're saying that we do. That's another issue, right? So one of the things that we're doing as part of this is going back to our water treatment plant and making sure that the data that we have can do that work. It's over 150,000, but that's why we need to do the inspections, because we don't know what the tonnage is for those homes, right? We don't know how much they're using. So we're just working from estimates. Even our reports, really, it was reverse engineering, right? They looked at the property appraiser site and kind of figured out who isn't connected to our water and sewer system. So when we do the inspections and the registration, then we'll get a better idea of how much usage we're talking about and what can be done.
Councilmember Laredo?
Just briefly, so she can go. I'm just, it's so comforting and overwhelmed to have a partner that is engaged, prepared, and does their homework. I think we're looking forward to working with you. I'm just sort of flabbergasted in the good sense of the word. Thank you for your everything that I know about you. Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Well, we have a lot of work to do. You know, I think that, you know, obviously we have the Biscayne Bay issue, we have the signalizations, we have to talk about the bridge and Bear Cut. You know, there's a lot of issues in terms of infrastructure, and that's why I'm so happy to get that committee, because really the majority of the needs that District 7 have are infrastructure needs. So we really need to figure out what we're going to do. You know, I've looked at the plans for Crandon. So at some point, what I'll do is I'll bring Maria Nardi on so we can talk about Crandon. The county does have a plan, but it's just one more thing that we have to take care of. And there's also a lot of questions regarding the seaweed. I know Mike and I are going to be meeting with Ken just to give you guys an idea of what we're doing there. You know, we're just going to we're putting together a meeting with, you know, DERM and WASA and everyone that could be involved as a stakeholder, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. I've also already asked for information on the lot that you guys lease from us that you're interested in buying. So I'll be bringing you that information as soon as possible. And whatever else. The library. Yes, Key Colony. I've already started working with the library system about resolving the Key Colony issue. So that's also on our plate for Key Biscayne. And then finally, you guys haven't asked me about the vaccine. You know, tomorrow we're actually going to have a press conference where we're talking more about it. It's been very complicated, in part because a lot of hospitals were withholding vaccine because, chemically speaking, the first dose is identical to the second dose. So they wanted to hold on to the vaccine so that they could provide the second dose to the people they had already provided the first dose to. Today, around 4 o'clock, the federal government finally told people they didn't have to worry about that, to just go ahead and provide it to folks that they had enough of the vaccine to provide to the states, and that moving forward, they're going to be providing allocations to the states, not based on their population, but based on the speed at which they are providing the vaccines to residents. So the state of Florida already had a bit of a race. The governor says that we have to put it in people's arms in 7 days. So we're only going to see a broader acceleration of that. I'm trying to bring a board item, but It's a little complicated right now. We are going to have a meeting because several board members have different ideas as to what's the best way to roll out. I will be sending you some information tomorrow after the press conference on the vaccine so that you can share it with your residents. And one of my complaints about this has been that, you know, the messaging isn't aligned with the audience. We're talking about people who are over 65, and a lot of them don't have access to the vehicles that we're using, which is a little ridiculous. But the state has responded with a phone number for the Hard Rock location, and we're trying to get a phone number for the Miami-Dade locations, which are currently Tropical Park and Metro Zoo. So we'll keep you posted on that, and we'll send you the information as soon as we have it. And hopefully, you know, we can get into a rhythm about the vaccines in the next week or so, we hope.
Right.
That's great. Councilmember McCormick and then Councilmember Moss.
Well, I was going to ask about the vaccine, so I don't really have a question, but I would like to just take my time to say welcome and congratulations and Happy New Year. And thank you for all this information. And we look forward to working with you.
Same, thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Councilmember Moss? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
No,
Commissioner. Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
I would say really quick on the vaccines, just in case people ask you. I have gotten a lot of emails, some from Key Biscayne, about foreigners getting the vaccine. That's the governor has made that determination that you don't have to live in the state of Florida to receive the vaccine. But that being said, as you guys know, the governor establishes the floor and we establish the ceiling. So I have already made a request to our legal department regarding what we can do and how we can prioritize residents. So we are looking into it. You know, he pretty much sets the rules, but at least at our sites, we're looking at what we can do to ensure that Miami-Dade County residents have first priority. Now, that being said, I don't want to leave illegal immigrants out and turn this into like a thing. So it's a very delicate kind of situation, and we're trying to figure out next steps. But a lot of people, I mean, I'm sure you guys are going to get the emails too about folks complaining about outsiders getting the vaccine. So that is happening, and we're doing our best to get a handle on it legally.
Thank you. Councilmember Moss?
Yes, Commissioner, congratulations. Something about the vaccine that you spoke about. You said that the hospitals were withholding for the second dose. And now that they're not, is there going to be a longer time period for people to get the second dose, or they're still going to be looking at 4 weeks or so for their second dose?
The federal government today assured us that we are not going to wait longer than the 4 weeks. So, you know, that's where we're at. They've told us that they have enough vaccine, that we don't have to worry. So we're moving forward with that guarantee in writing. The governor has also said that he's received the same information and that we're all on the same page. So moving forward, you know, now that they've said, A, we're going to have enough, and B, the faster you allocate, the more you get, you are going to see a rush to get it in people's arms. Now, another thing that hasn't been mentioned in the press that is, you know, coming up in our sites and at the state sites is that we don't have enough personnel to administer the vaccines. So what's happening? Our medical professionals are at hospitals. The numbers are going up at hospitals. We're doing these drive-through testing, and we're also doing at hospitals. And it's very difficult to ask the hospitals to shift their attention from taking care of COVID patients and other patients to vaccines, right? So FIU and the other universities right now are looking at, and well, FIU had already started, but the other universities, we're waiting to hear from them on training students to administer the vaccine. So we have a personnel issue, and we're trying to deal with that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else? All right. Well,
Can I just ask about on the issue of the vaccines? Is there any planning or looking down the road to sort of expand the vaccinations the way that the testing was expanded? Like, we set up our own here within the village. We like to take care of ourselves and try to make things
the issue is
local.
the time, right?
Okay.
Yes, we're talking about it. The issue is the time and the refrigeration, right? And Florida is behind with assisted living facilities, especially Miami-Dade County. So that adds another problem to this. CVS and Walgreens have been tasked with doing that work, but they're running a little behind. Right now, we have to get from when that vaccine, gets to us to when it goes into a patient. We can't take more than 7 days. So the concern is if we give it to another party and they delay, then we get our amount reduced. And that's kind of where we're at. But similar to the testing, I really believe it'll get a lot easier as we move forward. But I'm trying to get the county to consider something similar to what was done in Manatee County. Manatee County actually decided to create a comprehensive list and have a lottery system, which I thought was a lot easier than kind of driving folks batty, trying to get them, to find an appointment. But we're also a lot bigger. So it's a logistical issue. And there was at first no funding for the vaccine rollout. Now there is going to be funding for the vaccine rollout. So hopefully that allows us to better invest in the rollout in terms of manpower and in terms of sites.
Everybody good? Well, thank you very much again for coming.
Very good.
Or virtually, we hope to get you out here. Thanks for everything you've been doing. You've been great. You've been very responsive. It's been a pleasure to work with you so far. And I look forward to getting some things done here and as we move toward the bridge.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thanks, big shout out to Commissioner Laredo, who's always been so supportive and wonderful. Thank you. He's also kind enough to go on my radio show and talk about Key Biscayne, so I appreciate it too. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your service to the village of Key Biscayne. Bye.
Good night.
One quick note before we get back into the resolution. Harbor Drive is closed between the 200 and 300 block due to fire rescue activity in the area, so please find an alternative route. Just wanted to pass that along. Village Connect working to do what it does. All right, so we were talking about the resolution, and so if we could go back, Chad, you were saying the language was okay.
Just to circle back on what was said. I think number one, just to go back to, I think Councilmember Kaplan in number 8 and 9 thought to make changes from should to shall.
Right.
I think
and then intend to have public comments prior to. Right.
Prior to the maker of the motion speaking, right? That's what you said for number 10.
Yes.
And then to Councilmember Cigarello's point, for the manager's report, we're going to move that instead of giving a time, we're just going to say it should be heard. I think we should say right before the mayor and council comments. Is that appropriate? Because that's
right before mayor and council member reports and recommendations.
Reports and comment. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. Reports and recommendations.
I still think that we should still have this as a time certain.
Yeah, I think we should.
Because if we're going over, we
I
have
agree.
to hop in. And
Absolutely.
So, okay, so the where it goes on the agenda is just a function of telling the clerk. So we can move that.
Fine, but we'll make the time certain 8 p.m. Is that fine with everybody?
That's fine.
Yes.
Okay. So
no later than
8 p.m. Correct.
Okay.
And also it's going first before mayor and council members?
No, before.
No.
Yes, it would on the reports and recommendations. It would go up to 11A. Mayor and council members would go to 11B. Village attorney would go to C. Clerk, you would go to D. Sorry.
Okay.
Hey, one thing we've discussed before, and we haven't been able to find a solution, and I don't have a solution. But even council members, the 6 o'clock meeting time, I know was to try to shorten the meeting.
Right.
Probably hasn't worked very well. And yet I got before virtual, I had a lot of feedback from people saying, I can't participate because I'm working downtown or somewhere else. I'll never get, I just wonder whether this is the moment we need to figure out a way to.
Look, I support. I would go back to 7 o'clock. I think
I do too. I
look
at today. Even today, people are having a hard time literally making it, and I think it's a legitimate concern. And then the other stuff makes it it would enhance a public participation.
Right, but then I'd want to move
Yeah, because if they don't get right now, on somebody called me on police issues and stuff, and I said it's on the agenda today.
Right.
And they say, yeah, but it's probably coming at 6. I can't make it at 6.
No, it's a valid point. I have no. Do we have support to start?
I've heard the opposite. I mean, just the counterpoint is that by starting at 6, we get through the meat of the agenda at an earlier hour, and people aren't staying up until 11:30 and 12 o'clock at night if that's the nature of that, the meeting. So it's a judgment call, but and it's purely anecdotal. But my feedback is people rather liked it.
Well, I kind of agree with Councilmember Laredo that I have a lot of people who've come to me and said, yeah, and also it goes from 7 to 11. It would be shorter. We'd be more constrained. Maybe we get, now that we're putting efficiency rules in, we're going to get things done more quickly.
This is being recorded, right? Let me make sure.
Or move public comments to later on. But the people who want to participate in input are having trouble. Some of us in the past have had trouble getting to the podium by 6 because of other.
Well, that's a fair point. That is a fair point.
That's easy to do, and that's fine. We could set public comments anywhere.
Well, I'm sorry. The reason why we can do public comment, we can list it a second time, but the reason why you have it up at the front is because it allows you to do the consent agenda without having people speak on it, because under the law, people have to have a reasonable opportunity to be heard before you take formal action on something. So that's why it's at the front.
And the reason why we put it before presentations was because we used to have, many people would come to speak at the beginning of the meeting, and they didn't want to sit there for an hour and a half before they could come up and say something. So we actually moved it even more forward so people can come, speak, and be able to.
Do you want to have one section at where it is, one public comment section there, and then another one
before ordinances?
Well, but then all the only intervening things are special presentations and consent agenda.
Or before item 11.
Yeah, I was just thinking, before
public comments 11A.
Don't we already always open for public comment in an ordinance?
Yeah.
Yes, but not resolutions and not items that we're going to speak to. And to Councilmember Laredo's point, yeah, it would really be, if you're going to speak about ordinances or resolutions, you speak at the early public comments. But if you're going to speak about the items that are up for discussion, you could speak at the reports and recommendations. Because
makes sense.
Because resolutions don't get public comments necessarily. So we could have two placeholders for public comments. People may not speak in the late one if there's not an issue they feel passionate about, but we're giving them the opportunity. To Councilmember Laredo's point, we want as much public input as possible. So why not have 11 be a second public comments, and then 12, move reports and recommendations down one. Is that okay with everybody?
I think it's a good idea, and it's also consistent with what I consider to be good mayoral practice, because very often as a result of what's discussed during the debates, people want to be heard.
Right.
But it's always been mayor's discretion to do so.
Right. And it's very difficult because once you allow one, you've got to allow, but if there's a set time where everybody's going to be able to speak again, then that's it. And we'll roll that way.
I like it.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, may I have some clarification?
Certainly.
At the 11 reports and recommendations, you want 11A now to be public comments?
No. We want 11 to be public comments. We want 12 to be reports and recommendations.
Right.
Unless there's some sort of statute that says you can't have more than 11. No.
Before the reports and recommendations?
Correct. Does that make sense?
That's a good idea.
Okay.
And then Jocelyn, you got that per Ignacio's request that the manager's report would come before mayor and council member.
Yes, I did.
We already say no later than 8 o'clock, but if we move it up before, it's likely to be before 8 o'clock, especially with how efficient this council is moving these days.
Okay.
He just Kurlan checked us. You know that, right? All right.
What's that, the curse?
Judd used to walk in and talk to me. He'd come up to me and be like, oh, this is going to be a quick meeting. 7 days later, we were still at the dais. So anyway.
Can I ask a question? All of the changes because there was a motion, Laredo's motion at the beginning, and then
Well, no,
Mayor
let's be
Davies
clear. We have the
seconded.
resolution that's got a motion. I guess these are really more,
I'm trying to bring everything together. And
these items
Yeah.
are your purview. We're just instructing you. I guess this is sort of lapsed into, let's go back to the resolution, get it done, but, and these items will
Okay.
clear themselves, but they're separate from the resolution. All right. Are we clear on the
I
resolution?
move the resolution with the amendment that
I'll second your amended resolution.
And the catch cleanups.
And the cleanups, yeah, amendments all being catch-ups and cleanups.
So, okay.
All right.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so now we'll go to, just to be clear, there's going to be a second public comments, which will be number 11. Number 12 will now be reports and recommendations. 12A will be village manager, not later than 8 p.m. 12B will be mayor and council members. 12C will be village attorney. 12D will be village clerk. And then we'll go to 13, 14, and anything else we need. Okay?
Only if we're clear and checked.
Only if we're
Consensus of council?
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody
Yes.
disagree? Okay.
there's no support for starting at 7.
No, let's see how this goes. Let's
Okay.
see if this works for everybody, because this does give time for people to come and make their comments.
Okay.
Let's see how this goes.
Very good.
All right.
I move it.
Next.
So now we're going back to the resolution.
10C.
10C. We've already passed that resolution. Now we're on the next resolution.
We're deferring the,
And we deferred B, so 10C comes up next.
The next item is a resolution of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the issuance of a capital improvement revenue refunding bond, Series 2021, of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, in the aggregate principal amount of not exceeding $11,300,000 for the purpose of refunding several series of outstanding bonds and paying the costs of issuance of the bonds, awarding the sale of the bonds to Key Government Finance, Inc., providing for security for the bonds, providing other provisions relating to the bonds, making certain covenants and agreements in connection therewith, and providing an effective date.
Moved.
So moved.
Second.
So
May the record reflect, Madam Clerk, may the record reflect in the minutes that this is a move to save money.
All right, that's right.
I'm sorry, may I have clarification?
I moved.
You moved, and who seconded?
I did. Ed.
Ed, yeah, give it to Ed.
Ed, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
You can
Vice
have it.
Mayor London, thank you.
He seconded. You
Did
seconded
you
it.
get my comments, Jocelyn?
Yes, I did, sir, thank you.
It's not acquisition of new debt, but it's actually reduction of the cost of carrying the debt.
That's correct. So I was going to make that comment, but you were far more eloquent than I probably would have been.
Call the question.
All right. Anybody, any discussion on this? Anybody against? Anybody have questions about this? All right. Call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Beautiful. Well done, everybody. Good job, Benjamin.
Yep.
Well argued. What time is it? Oh my goodness. Go ahead. Yeah, next item.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is reports and recommendations. Are we starting with public comments again for this meeting?
Not for this one, for the next meeting.
Okay.
I mean, I guess we could, well, no, not for this meeting. We didn't notice it, so I don't want to confuse anybody.
Okay.
Should we do the manager's report though?
Well, that's at 8 o'clock. This is 7 o'clock.
Except
Oh, there it is.
we want to move it up.
It's
I thought-
no later than 8 o'clock.
Okay, fine. Do we have consensus to do the manager's report now?
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
let's go. Interim manager, you are up. I almost said Madam Manager.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I was going to take a little credit. I've only been manager for about a week and a half, and I've already saved you $750,000.
Nice job, Chief.
But it's good to be on board for a little bit. I'll make this very, very quick. I know that one of the items that we wanted to talk about tonight is the boat noise and traffic on Biscayne Bay. That issue came up from not only one of our residents, but that's been a long time issue. And I've currently got on the phone Chief Capone, Deputy Chief Capone, who is the acting chief while I'm serving as your interim. So I would like to invite Brett to discuss what's going on and what we're doing in the meantime. And then I will intercede on some of the future things that we wish to do. Brett?
Yes, sir. I apologize. I'm having video problems, but hopefully you can hear me. Audio seems to be working. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, as far as the noise complaints on the waterways, just to give you a little perspective, we had a total of 12 incidents over 2020 that we responded to. All of these incidents occurred between the hours of 2 and 7 p.m., and the majority of them happened on the weekends, with the exception of 2 early morning complaints that we had. So as far as we continue to answer complaints, I just wanted to give you a little perspective there on the total number of incidents that we did respond to. We have our boat is out Monday through Friday when we have an officer, when we have a Marine Patrol officer that's not doing other duties. We do have the Marine Patrol boat working from 11 to 7 on the weekends. We always have a boat out on the weekends, 11 to 7. So we continue to answer complaints, and we've answered all 12 within the last year. If you have any questions.
So I'm going to add to that, and thanks, Chief. I appreciate that. You know, statistics are obvious, but people making complaints that are considerable, honest complaints, are what we have to deal with in the future. So I want to give you a little bit of a background. And during the past 10 months serving as your chief of police, we've directed, per the emergency order of Miami-Dade County former mayor and our current emergency orders, that our Marine patrols, as all the other municipalities, were asked to engage strictly in enforcement of the emergency orders. And in our case, that enforcement was directed toward the flats. We've written hundreds of warnings, and we've given several citations regarding people who have violated the emergency order for the flats. In essence, we've been focusing our one boat, on the majority of their efforts for support of the county emergency order. However, what was brought to the attention of all our council, and I read that same email, is something that is bothersome to all of us. The suggestion was made, and I fully support the suggestion. I would need the support of council to move our no vessel zone, our vessel exclusion zone, to 1,200 feet to follow the boundary the Village of Key Biscayne currently has. Unfortunately for some residents, and particularly one of the people who brought this to our attention, that 1,200 feet is not going to appear to be that remarkable because of the curvature of our boundary along our waterways on the bay side. What we're dealing with there is a combination of about 200 to 300, maybe at times 400 boats, even though we've managed to separate them and keep them apart due to the COVID restrictions, having these massive speaker systems on their boats. And it creates what I call white noise. The noise is so obnoxious and intrusive that you can't even make out what it is. It's just loud. We could take our decimal meters anywhere on any part of those homes that reside on Harbor Drive there and along that waterway, and you would not be able to indicate which vessel was the loudest or the one producing the noise that violated their privacy. So by pushing it back 1,200 feet, that is a tool that I would encourage the council to support. It's within our purview to do so. I would also suggest that our police department, and I'll talk more with Chief Capone about this, we do some more positive noise violation support, and that would require us actually following the county nuisance guidelines. So the county has an ordinance that provides us a small violation for a nuisance. And if our Marine Patrol officer determines that somebody's got a party boat out there and they've got these 10-foot speakers and multiple speakers, even if they're not actually able to identify that as something bothersome to our community, if it's within our waterways, we can cite them on that nuisance ordinance. So there are some things that we could do out there. It's been difficult. If you recall, once we were required to put our officers out in our schools, we lost the advantage of that 7-day-a-week Marine Patrol coverage. During COVID, when many people have been laid off, there have been more and more, especially when they open the marinas, more and more people actually out on their boats during the week, and we just simply haven't been able to support it. So that's something that A, is up to you all to take up the cause regarding the 1,200 feet, and B, for myself to meet with my police department and discuss the things that we can do. Unfortunately, right now, the idea of getting the support of Miami-Dade County Marine, Miami Beach Marine that has been supportive for us in the past, Coral Gables, FWC, they're all dealing with these emergency orders, and they've been very sparse in their additional support for us. That's where we're at, and I'm waiting to hear comments from council.
Councilwoman McCormick.
Thank you, Chief. And I know you and I have discussed this and are sort of in the same place with this. I think that what we're seeing and what we all saw in the email that we received is that these issues kind of go even above and beyond just noise. It's the situation out there on the flats that residents that live there are dealing with debris and just, I'll call it conduct that they don't really want to be watching or hearing or having their children experience. So I appreciate this first step of trying to move our vessel exclusion zone, and I absolutely support that. I would also like to see if there is, the will of council to ask the chief when he is back in the police department, and in the interim, the chiefs that are there, to look at what we can do sort of more long-term and to really approach this problem more holistically and more aggressively. Maybe when things are not in this COVID situation and our resources aren't quite so taxed, I think now is maybe a good time to plan. But, the chief and I talked about, I brought up the example of Fort Lauderdale figured out how to get rid of their spring breakers. And there's ways that I know there's ways that our police can address this and try to clean this up. But it's clearly something that we need to deal with as a community and take care of this problem for our residents that live there and before we see another tragedy out there.
Yeah,
I move the as a motion to support the manager's recommendation that we move the enforcement zone to 1,200.
I think we can have a consensus, but I don't think we can have a motion.
Let me just address the process.
Councilmember London wanted to first make a comment. Vice Mayor London wanted to make a comment first. You got him. I'll unmute you. Go ahead,
Chief. Yeah, Chuck, we have a noise ordinance. Is there any way we can enforce our noise ordinance both from the boats and from other people in the key that disturb other people on a regular basis?
Yes, sir, there is. So let me expand on that, Ed. what the police department would normally do, they would respond to a complaint. They would go to that location with a decimal meter, and they would make a determination whether or not it falls within our noise ordinance. They would address whatever entity is creating that noise, first with a knock on the door requesting that they turn down the noise. If we do have to come back, we then, depending on how obnoxious it becomes, either issue a written warning or at that point issue a citation for noise. The second thing we can do is determine at that moment whether or not it is a nuisance, and they're two completely different items. It's one thing to be a little bit loud. It's another thing some of these obnoxious parties and breakdowns that Ms. McCormick was talking about. And at that point, the officer can use that county code and cite them for a nuisance, which has a little more strength behind it when it comes to law enforcement. But your general answer is yes, we can.
How about as far as boats that are outside our jurisdiction, they're making sound, especially on weekends, greater than our noise ordinance permits? Do we have any authority to do anything?
No, sir, we don't.
Well, can we get an
What I
agreement
can
with
do
Dade
that.
County so we
Yes, here's what I can do. I can ask our chief to reach out to the Marine Resources in Miami-Dade County and FWC and use the county ordinances for those waterways out there and see if we can garner some support. Again, I could, I'm not going to sit up here and blow smoke, make excuses, but I could tell you that their resources are extremely strained, and whether or not noise is an issue for them, it certainly is a quality of life issue for us. And I'll reach out to the director of Miami-Dade and do the things that I need to do to maybe get some extra additional help from them in whatever way we possibly can from that. We've got a great relationship with them. It merely comes down to, do they have somebody available to help us out?
No, I understand, and I appreciate that. What I was really asking is, could we enter into some kind of joint agreement with them where
We could enforce.
can use our two Marine patrolmen
I misunderstood.
to enforce our noise ordinance?
I misunderstood. We've actually done that on the Causeway, as you're all well aware. Chad, I would defer to you, but I believe we could enter into some type of an ILA with the county to be able to enforce some of those things outside of our current jurisdiction.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I think, do we have consensus that we obviously can't vote on anything right now? We're going to need an ILA to come back. We're going to need, I remember when we did the first barrier, when was that? That was, Ed, were you on council then?
Ancient history.
That was like 75 BC. No, but I remember we did the boat exclusion zone off of those same properties. So and we were very conservative at the time. I'm very much in favor of moving this out a bit. So do we have?
I don't understand. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Question. I don't understand where we can vote or say our job is to set policy and the manager is our executor. Can I move to set a policy? Notwithstanding, if lawyers get it, they're going to complicate it. That is the will of this council by vote to do it.
I think we do need, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we need an ordinance to move the vessel exclusion zone out, and we need the ILA executed.
Not only do you need an ordinance, but underneath the local governments are preempted except as provided in the statute to do this. There's a procedure, and we've done it plenty of times, and you actually have to go and get state approval of it also, which we can do. So we will bring back an ordinance amending the vessel exclusion zone for the Nixon Beach area, I guess, or do you want it try to do an exclusion zone along the whole bay side of the island?
It should be along the full bay side, Chad. That would be my
full bay side.
Well, what happens to those homes that have docks on their properties?
So obviously that would and should not prohibit somebody who has a dock in their home.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
In that area.
Okay, that would have to be part of it because I'm not sure right now. I believe it's just off Nixon through that area, so that you can't operate a motorized vessel in that area. Period. I don't think there's any exception for anybody. I may be wrong, but I thought that whole area was excluded.
What actually happened, sir, with this with these emergency orders, it has pushed the vessels into other areas,
right?
Not necessarily in the flats anymore. So at this point, I would suggest to you all that everybody on that bay side right now, that's a Key Biscayne resident.
Oh, no question. They're getting hammered with this. I see it all along the way. I just want to make sure that they can access their vessel, their vessels can get off the dock and get out on the open water. I want to make sure we're not precluding them. We're not creating an illegal act for them.
We're going to have to make an arrangement for that.
On the issue of this particular thing, because there are jurisdictional issues.
Yeah.
I accept the legal constraints, but it's a matter of policy. It should be reflected in the minutes that we made that policy decision today.
Sure. No, I think that's right. I think that your consensus move was absolutely appropriate. We all want
to clarify the motion, Councilmember Laredo.
Well, it's not a motion; it's consensus. We want to move the vessel. Our intent is to allow for for our residents quiet enjoyment of their property by moving the vessel exclusion zone out, and we're going to work where we can, either with the county or by ourselves, to reduce the interference and behavior that is not in keeping with what our residents desire out there on the waterways.
But specifically to be able to enforce the county's noise ordinance.
Correct.
And I should only amend that it's not our intent or our decision.
Yes.
It is our decision.
And are we also all in agreement of asking the chief to figure out some way to try to rid ourselves of this problem altogether?
Yes.
Okay, because I think we're going to start looking at issues of property values and tax revenues, and this is a big deal.
I agree.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to, on the policy-making part, I wanted to, maybe I misunderstood the chief/manager. I see that you're talking about responding for whatever reason to complaints. And I was hope that if you can implement a proactive campaign to deter this kind of behavior, and I really would like to have the council consider that we suggest to you that we issue no more warnings. I think we got to stop being nice. We got warnings for everything. And I understand, and I don't want to get in debate, whether it's violations of golf carts, just ticket. Can we just bypass the warnings? Because we're always behind the 8 ball. We're always behind the actual enforcement of the law. So I would suggest, and hear your opinions, that we take a proactive enforcement and not respond just to warnings on this particular issue, but in general, and do not issue warnings anymore. Issue tickets, period.
Well, I could tell you that we could go either way, but it's obvious to me that we have a problem, and I'll work with the acting chief right now to direct our officers and to create a program that is proactive, to the
aggressive
that we could do it with the resources that we have, and hopefully get more resources, get some laws behind us, things that we can support and do, and we'll bring that back to council at a future date. We'll work as quickly as possible with our attorneys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect.
By the way, one last question, Mayor. Sure. Whatever happened to the ordinance or the discussion of the numbers on the water side? That's been shelved of the property?
Oh, the addresses I think we had a conversation about that a little while ago where did residents not want it? What happened with that?
We did not get a lot of support for it, sir. So we talked about having some type of a town hall. COVID hit and it was shelved at that moment. It was not a priority item. I've always wanted it because I think it safeguards our community. We did not get a lot of support. So if the consent...
Well, Chief, let me interrupt you and tell you how I feel. You know, people got to get with it. They want their cake and eat it too. They want enforcement, you know, because of the nuisance, but yet they don't want to cooperate. Because I would imagine, as you told us several times, that it's much better for your officers to enforce any water kind of complaint by having access, which is logical, to the property value. So they want to have it both ways, and they need to know that they cannot have it both ways. If they want to be that way, then we'll just pull back on the other enforcement. I really have no sympathy for that point of view. I think it's very, very self-centered, and we should be thinking about most of us. Am I wrong here? I just cannot believe.
Well,
that on the one hand, they want us to help them with stuff, and on the other hand, we're telling them, here's a tool that can make it better. I say, oh, well, but I don't want to do that. I'm sorry. I just don't have any.
Well, let's let that sit. Let's try and have a town hall and maybe explain it to them.
Okay.
But, you know, let's move forward with what we're talking about now. Chief, you understand where we stand. Let's get some enforcement out there. Let's be proactive and let's make people understand that they can't just do this to our residents. We're not going to stand for it. Next item.
I'm sorry, we all, the manager's ongoing project update?
Yes, that's next.
Okay, really quick, you all. Obviously, I'm new to this role. The manager had a multitude of projects that are on a list that are available to each and every one of you. I've met with all the directors and I've talked to them about projects that we have already had approved by all of you. That we appropriated funding for. I'm waiting for our budget amendment for our carry forward. We've already directed, or I have already directed our directors who have projects in the making to move them forward. So on the 26th, I'll be able to bring to you probably about a half dozen projects that we are pushing ahead with. And the rest, I imagine you could still find on the manager's list that is on our website.
Perfect. Anybody have questions? Well, let's move forward. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Pleasure.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is reports and recommendations, mayor and council members. Next steps regarding village manager recruitment, procedures, processes, and background checks.
Okay, first, let me just apologize. I need more time to get through the candidates. We had 52. I have spoken to a number of them, but I haven't had sufficient time. I've had some personal things going on, so I appreciate all of your understanding. And you know, we'll get moving on this. My goal is to have a list of 5 for the next meeting, but this is the time for us to discuss everything. One of the questions that had come up in talking with our HR director, Juan Gutierrez, was who did we want to, and I apologize because I closed my window because it kept dinging, but who did we want to do the background checks? Juan can do those if we want him to. Those are background checks. They're fairly standard. You give it to a company, they'll do the background check. But who is going to do the reference check subsequent when we get down to those 5 or 3 or whatever number we decide is going to be given reference checks, probably 5. You know, Juan doesn't think it should be him, and I agree. I think we do need to outsource that, but I think we can find somebody to do that for us. It may be either Berkeley Group may be able to do that for us. So let's start the conversation off. I will say I got an email, and I had thought everybody else had gotten this email from Connie Hoffman, and she had said that she was no longer. She's decided not to execute the professional services agreement that was sent to her and was withdrawing her proposal to assist the village in the selection of the new manager. I believe that Berkeley Group can, I got this yesterday, but I believe Berkeley Group is capable to do what we were asking her to do. But obviously this is a decision for this council as a whole. And, you know, if Juan's on and he can give us any clarification about this, or if the manager can give us clarification about what happened, that'd be great. Otherwise, let's have the conversation. Ed's got his hand. Ed's waving all over the place. Vice Mayor?
I understand that we did never execute a contract with Connie Hoffman, which is fine. She was going to do the situation analysis. She was not doing the background checks. That was going to be done by the Berkeley Group. And I thought at the last meeting, we decided that once we decided who would be number one, they would check that person out. If he was fine, that would be the end of it. If he wasn't, we'd go to number two. And I think we should still proceed with that. Now, if you want to have Berkeley Group do situation analysis, then we can ask them about that. I don't know how necessary that is.
I'd like them to do
hold
that.
Hold on. Councilmember Kaplan and then Councilmember McCormick.
I don't know what happened with Connie Hoffman. There was some overlap between what Berkeley was prepared to do and still can do, as I understand it, and what Connie had proposed to do. The analysis and evaluations, we use the word psych and emotional. They were somewhat different, but point in the same direction. I think as a result of our conversation about those types of evaluations last time, we came to a consensus that that would be useful, helpful, necessary, even input for us. So I think we should hasten to get Berkeley to commit and get them a contract. I'm not sure that they've received anything yet, and their scope presumably enlarges just a little bit because Connie won't perform her function.
I guess the first question is Juan on the call, Chief or Mr. Manager? Is Juan here?
Should be. He should be.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Juan, did Berkeley Group get the contract, and could we amend it to include some of the tasks that we had requested of Ms. Hoffman?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Councilmember McCormick?
Frank already said everything I was going to say.
Mayor,
Councilmember Laredo and then Councilmember Moss.
in light of the very justifiable delay or postponing of the decision we're doing today, and therefore a lot of more time for all of us, not just you, can I suggest that we lower the threshold for the 26 to 3 instead of 5? And it should read, by the way, no, I always thought it was no more than 5 or 3. In other words, if somebody feels strongly about 1 or 2, that they don't need to put 5 or 3. But I would suggest that we start narrowing so that maybe by the 26th we have 3. That'll be my suggestion. And the second comment I have is I 100% agree with Ed London on the staggering of the expenses based on the rating so that we don't have to do 3 or 5 and save money and get the same result.
Councilmember Moss.
Yeah, I wasn't in the workshop, so I'm not sure if you guys already discussed this, but I just wanted to kind of go over the process that we're laying out, because it looks like January 26th, we wanted to come down to our top 5, maybe top 3. Even if we select our top 5, the problem that's going to happen is probably we're going to have some ties, and it's not going to end up with 5 candidates. We may have 8 candidates or 9 candidates at the end, because some of them may have increased and some may have a lot of ties there. If we go with our top 3, maybe we'll end up with 5 or 6 at the end. But I just wanted to kind of get this process a little bit clearer of what we're thinking about doing, on the 26th, what we're thinking about doing on the 9th, on the 23rd. Are we having any special meetings in between where maybe we want them, the top candidates to speak to us publicly, have a chance to publicly ask them questions? And you guys may have discussed this, but if you give me a summary. If not, maybe I think this is something that we might need to discuss this whole process all the way to the end.
No, I think we need to do that.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I thought it was our responsibility to contact every person we thought was qualified, either in person or on phone, not to have to ask questions later, but to ask the questions before we decide who we believe is qualified. I also would like to stick with 5 people because I'm very pleased to say that as far as I'm concerned, we have more than 5 qualified people who would be a good manager. So to reduce it to 3, I think when you look at the 7 people, you might not have a good consensus. With 5 people, I think you might come to, well, you might get 1, 2, or 3, and then we can discuss that and rank them.
So you want them ranked. I wanted to clarify that point. You want them ranked when they come in. Is that correct?
I would rank them when they come in.
Okay. Councilmember McCormick and then Councilmember Kaplan.
I'd like to discuss this idea of only asking one at a time to go through this situation sort of interviews. I thought for me, the reason that I wanted that information was because it was a piece of the whole looking at the person that I wasn't sure I could get on my own with a phone interview. And the same with, some of the background information. So I'm really not sure that it's helpful to me to only do it to one person. I mean, to me, I think it would be part of my whole decision of ranking people. I get my number of people, and then I'd want that other additional piece of information before I could actually say who's my 1, 2, 3. I don't know if I'm alone in that.
You're not alone in that. Here's where I am. There's 52 applicants. Every single one of them is a person of quality. Of the 52, I think my count right now is that 40 meet all of the musters all of the criteria that we summoned. 40. The 12 that I think don't are solid, strong performers in their own way, but they are not quite as, relatively speaking, strong as the others. Within the 40, which is a large number, I think 20 are probably on balance, less on subjective bases, less compelling on paper than another 20. Part of the process, and why I so strongly agree with Allison's observation is, this is, relativity, person to person. And I don't know how any of us can compare person to person without meeting them and comparing them relative to their competition. I don't know where everybody else is, but we've gone through the paper part, which is primarily objective in my view, and secondarily, whatever you can draw from cover letters and how well people write and how they explain what their accomplishments have been. I've been able to differentiate 40 from 12 and 20 from 40, roughly speaking. It seems at this point completely arbitrary to me to pick 3 versus 5 or 5 versus 7. It's going to be a hard process and probably arbitrary to get to 5 or 7 or 10, because they're all pretty similar in my view. But at the end and getting to the number that we all agree on within a couple of weeks' time, I think we need to meet these people. And if it's 5 of them, we need to meet 5 of them. And if it's 7, we need to meet 7. And if it's 3, we need to meet 3. But we need to go through that regimen, person to person, however we do it, Zoom or Skype or whatever it's going to be. That's my view.
I agree with that. Vice Mayor, I see you waving. Looks like
Thank
you're
you.
waving down another boat.
Well, Frank, normally you're a gentleman and very nice, and I wish you were hiring me for your law firm, because it looks like you'd hire almost anybody. But anyway, what I'm really trying to say is that I've called and talked to 15 people of the 52 who I think are qualified, who I thought were qualified. After my discussions, I got down to 8 people. I've met with 6 of the 8 people personally, spent time with them, and I think I can make a decision. And I think if you would do the same thing, you could also, and you wouldn't have to worry about doing this later and dragging this out more and more time being wasted.
Well, I'm trying to do
Mayor?
that. I'm trying to do that, but this is the process that I think works best for me. And I think it's a scrupulous process that eliminates the chance of missing someone or missing quality that we would otherwise discern when we meet people.
Councilmember Laredo?
Mayor? Yeah, I don't understand Councilman Kaplan's suggestion that after more weeks to meet with people, I've been through a lot of processes of selection, and I'm pretty close to the numbers that Ed London is in terms of people I've spoken to, references that I've done, et cetera, et cetera. And that's, we're at this now for 3 months. We had 30 something. I was doing these things as they were coming in. I did not wait until we got 51. I did not wait until December 31st. I think most people are waiting for us to make a decision. We're in good hands, but the argument that you can continue and then get to a number somehow in this scrupulous, as he calls it, mine is as careful as yours, and I've devoted a lot of time, and I've narrowed it down considerably. And so that's why I think using the additional time that we gain because of the justified delay, that would even accelerate that to 3. But I can live with that, but I can't accept the premise that what I guess Ed and London and I at least are doing is not as correct and as detailed. I would only suggest that or clarification that it should be, or I thought it was, no less than 5. Because I may just say, you know what, I have 3 people who are clearly
Absolutely. Yeah, if you
okay,
feel
so the word is no less than 5. And I guess
you're not required to have 5, no more than 5.
Okay.
No more than 5, you mean?
No
You
more
want
than
no more
5.
than 5. Right. Yeah, no more than 5. Councilmember Moss and then Councilmember McCormick.
No, I just want to go back on the process. I'm probably down to about 10 right now. I'm kind of glad that we're deferring this to the next meeting because I need some more time to make those phone calls and go through that. I feel pretty confident I could probably get down to 5 by January 26th. I would like to see if we can get our top 5. Maybe we might have to add 1 or 2 on there if there's some type of tie or whatever. And then take those next couple of weeks for us to do a little bit more in-depth interviews with these candidates and see if we could get down to maybe 3 for the February 9th. And then I think what you said, Councilmember McCormick, maybe with those top 3, and again, it might be a couple ties there, so maybe there's a 4th or something. We could do that situational test and stuff like that with those top candidates to help us rank them. And then after that, we come back with our ranked top 3 in the February 23rd meeting. And, and if we need more time, we can always make more time. But I just want to try to get some idea of the process that we want to go through to the end. And, if we need to push it out another week if people aren't ready or the next meeting, I'm fine with that. Because I think that, as much as I want to make the decision quickly, I think we should not rush too much on it because we need to find the right person. And what Councilmember Kaplan said is it's not easy. I mean, we have a lot of qualified people. One thing I think that may happen, we have to be very careful, is that when we do select our top 5, we might have all different 5s because there's so many qualified people. And, we still might have a list of 20 people that we still have to go through. But at least we need to start working our way there. And that would be what I would propose as, a rough draft of a process. And, but, just to throw it out there and see what you guys think.
Just to make sure I understood, I believe we had thought that Connie and then Berkeley would go through their analyses with respect to 5.
Correct.
And that's what you just said. So we were on board with that last time. I continue to be on board with that. That's what I think we should do.
Right. I think that's right. I think that's the process we talked about last time, and that's what we should continue to do. I understand some people may have their one person or their 2 or 3, and that's who they want to direct, but I think that's right. And so at the next meeting, have our 5, and then subsequent to that, but the question that Juan proposes, he can do background checks. Again, that's just handing it off to a company that can do your background checks. But as far as reference checks, he doesn't feel it's appropriate for him. I don't feel it's appropriate for him. It should be I don't know if it should be. Yeah, that's what I would say. That should be something the search firm. I mean, that's when I was in headhunting. That's what we did. We were the ones who went out. I don't think it's appropriate for somebody, particularly if that person's going to be working under somebody. I don't think that's right. I'm sorry, Councilmember McCormick.
It's okay. just want to reiterate, I agree with Brett and Frank that I would like to have our list of, if it's five, go through this process with the outside firm. But I want, for the benefit of our residents watching this and understanding, I want to just sort of recap. We decided not to go with a search firm for the whole sort of lock, stock, and barrel like the last time. And we certainly saved money in so doing. And that makes me more comfortable to put more people through this process. But if you remember, when we did this search the last time, when we got our short list to look through and to interview, WD, our headhunter, had already done these things. He had already put these people through this type of interview to decide who even just to expose us to. So I would like to make sure that our list is comprehensive enough. So I'm comfortable with 5. I agree with Brett. It's likely to be bigger, but I'm just putting it out there now for those of you. I can look at Ed on his boat looking like he's not liking what I'm saying. This is where I am and this is where I'm going to be no matter how long that list is. I think this is valuable information and I'm not making a decision without having it on as many people as I can. So.
As far.
Yeah, I think we've got 4 in consensus that we're going to have our 5 coming back to the 26th. Oh, sorry. You can
Still hear me. We'll have our 5 coming back. And then we will go through the process, but I would like Juan to reach out to Berkeley, have them talk about, taking over what Hoffman was supposed to do and then doing the reference checks for us on the final group that we put to them. I agree. I mean, look, we're going to go through an interview process now. And then I'm going to want to talk to the finalists again, because there may be finalists who I haven't spoken to. I mean, as Brett said, as Councilmember Moss said, we're all coming with 5, no more than 5. So out of 52. So the likelihood that there are people that I haven't really spent a lot of time with, it's possible. So that I think that's a consensus. We have 4.
And to be ready, are we now directing the manager to negotiate and execute that contract with the Berkeley group so that we are ready to go at our next meeting?
Yes.
Moving forward.
The manager would like to speak as well. Yes, I agree. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. So just really quick, I have no horse in the race. I'm not into the job, and I'm blessed to be going back to being the police chief. I've been your chief for 16 years, so I've been able to watch from a distance everything that goes on in the village. I can only tell you this, from my perspective as now your interim manager, this is probably the most important manager hire you all have ever made. And I understand you wish to get through this process, and believe me, I'll be happy to go back as quickly as possible to be your chief of police. But I can tell you this, as the most important hire you make, taking 2 to 3 to 4 weeks more is going to make the difference in your village for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So I would implore you to take your time, reach out to as many of these people as you can, use the resources that you have available to you, do your background checks like we do in the police department that can sometimes take literally 5, 6, 7 weeks to do a sufficient background check, and maybe even more, because you're not just entrusting this person to be a manager for your budget and for the few small projects that you have, but this is your $150 million person. You've got a GEO bond that has a long-term value of $100 million. You have a budget that goes from $38 to $40 million, depending, and all of the other things that the village needs to do. So I would just ask, and I'm willing to sit in this seat for as long as possible, or hopefully as short as possible, that this be your greatest, most difficult and toughest decision, because we need this person for the long term, and this is for the resilience and lifetime of the village. I'll do whatever I do. I'll execute the agreement. I'll be prepared from the administrative end with my team, but that's my suggestion to you all, sitting from afar and watching the process. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Absolutely. All right. So are we clear?
No, I'm not clear at all. So
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
So five names. You need to come with 5 names on January 26th.
Okay.
At
we're
that
going to
point,
do.
we're going to
background
give
checks
those
on them.
names the backgrounds checks. We will do the reference checks, and we will push the information to Berkeley Group to do the evaluations on the areas we talked about at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Then the next meeting.
Councilmember, well, hold on. Councilmember Laredo, you're muted. I didn't hear you. I saw your
Again,
lips.
no more than 5.
No more than 5. You don't have to, yeah, 5, but
Prejudice by assuming that those of us.
you're right. Absolutely. No, I'm just, understand.
On a lot of calling, a lot of things. So, okay,
No more
thanks.
than 5.
We may end up more than 5, but we're going to know more than 5.
But nobody may offer more than 5. Okay.
So then the next meeting, what happens at the next meeting? The 9th now. of
Well, let's see
February.
what happens. You know, we're going to have to see where we are in the process after that's a.
So we want to just kind of let this, and each meeting we just try to figure out what's
Yeah,
going on.
we're going to have to
instead of
see where we
setting
are.
a path.
I think if you want to say at the 9th, we'll get a status update from Berkeley as to where they are in terms of background checks, reference checks, and testing.
Okay. Do you want to go to another, like, no more than 3 at some point to try to limit it down one more time before we do the analysis and all the analysis? From
No,
Berkeley,
I
or
think
no?
that we want everything done after the 26th meeting so we can start moving. After the 26th, we'll probably be reaching out to interview these people again.
Okay, so
You're not required to. I want to be clear. You're
That's
not
fine.
required in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But if you have questions,
I will. And then the other question I have is, once all that is done,
why don't we say
then
this?
we're going to rank them and come in here and sit down, and we're going to go through the rankings until we get to the top person that's still standing.
Well, I think we'll have to have a conversation on February. Why don't we say from the 26th to the 23rd? You know, I don't know if it's realistic to say that on the 9th they will have all the information we need.
No.
That's 2 weeks.
No, and
So we
also
can say
we
the
need to
23rd.
digest it. But yes, Brett, my understanding is that once we have the results of the testing, we will then whittle down to our top.
Right. I think that's on the 23rd.
Come
We'll
in,
have the
take our
top 3.
vote, and
So it's safe
figure
to
out.
say that we are shooting for February 23rd as our day to make a decision if everything is available at that time. If not, we would have to push it
That
out.
seems really fast, but if it's available, yeah. Is that giving us time to digest it?
What do you mean by
again,
digest it?
Well, unlike Ed, I think there's a possibility that I may discover something about a candidate through this testing and background check that changes my opinion.
Okay, so
So I want a chance after it's done to read it and reevaluate.
Okay, so why don't we do this? We will shoot for the 23rd to make a decision, but if somebody's not ready, we push it over to.
I think to have the information from Berkeley is
yeah,
the reality.
if we don't have it, we have to push it.
But we're not going to be able to make a decision. I think we're going to have the information on the 23rd. We'll then have our discussions.
Okay, that's fine.
And we can then set a special meeting. But again, I guess it also depends, can we get these people in person?
Well, that's what I was going to say. That was one last thing I was going to ask. Could we set up a time where our top candidates could come on here, speak to us for 2 minutes each of who they are so the public can see them. We can hear all of them together before we make our final decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe
That
we
has
could
to
do
happen.
that on the 23rd.
I would say that would be the 23rd.
Okay. Okay, and then after that, we're looking at maybe March 9th as possibly being the decision day.
I think that sounds about right.
I think it's also nice, though, the last time, didn't we have a special meeting to do it, not on a regular agenda?
Yeah, certainly.
So not the 9th is a regular council meeting with its own, and if you look, we only have one in March, one in April. We're going to have an actual agenda where we have business to
So
conduct.
you want to do it on the 2nd? You want to do it on the 11th? Or you want to do it on
I'm
the
fine with
4th?
any of those days, but maybe we do it in the first couple of weeks of March, and
No,
we
certainly.
shoot that as our date. Just, I mean, these people want to know too. The people who
So
are
do we.
applying,
We
people
want
want
to
to
get this done.
So.
But again, I also, I want to
And
make
I'm
sure.
okay. I'm not saying that we have to bind ourselves. If we need more time, we need more time. But I think at least to give some type of target that we're
Okay,
aiming.
so the 26th, we have the 5 names. By the 23rd, we want, I mean, again, this is going to come down to Berkeley Group. After talking with the chief and talking to Juan, we're going to have to know, are they able to get a turnaround in a month, right? In 4 weeks.
So we have our job of what we're doing now. We'll be prepared at our next meeting with our 5 people, and then we'll have the information then what the timeline looks like with Berkeley Group.
Right.
Okay, and which day do you guys want them to come and speak at one of our meetings?
Well, I don't think it should. I think to Allison's point, it should not. It should be a meeting, basically just for the council candidate, the manager candidates.
I mean, it depends. I mean, are
Can we
get
cross
more
that
people
bridge?
watching?
We could do that. I mean, what he's trying to do, and I understand what Councilmember Moss, he's trying to set up a framework so that we have some certainty. I mean, so that we can, so let's try and, so the February 23rd, we have everything back from Berkeley. Let's set it, I think they can come the next week. Why couldn't they come March 2nd? Why couldn't we do March 2nd, do a special meeting for the manager search? Does anybody have any objections to that?
March 2nd.
March 2nd.
Which would be what, our decision day or our day that they would just
The
come
day
and
they
speak?
come in,
Okay.
the meet and greet
Are we
day.
talking about 3 people or 5 people or 2 people?
We're
Or
still
the
at
number 1
5.
person?
We're still at
still
5,
at
but
5.
probably by the 20, well, depending on if we'll have all the information. Let's have all 5 come back on March 2nd.
Let's get consensus after to see how we
Okay.
rank them, then we can determine it. Sitting, making procedure now makes no sense.
Well, I'm trying to set up a framework, Ed, Vice Mayor, so that, let's have a framework. We can divert from this on January 26th. If we all have, as Councilmember Laredo pointed out, if we all have one candidate that we're all going to put forward as the one person, and it's all 7 of us pick the same person, then it's pretty simple decision. But let's have a framework for trying to work through it. Councilmember Laredo?
Just to make clear, I'm from the School of Incremental Progress. We're into this already almost 4 months, but that's okay. For the 26th, for the meeting on the 26th, we have to give no more than 5. Is it clear that we need to rank him? Yes or no? That we should rank him?
I don't think so.
Because it's been kicked around and I don't know what we decided.
I couldn't rank them.
5 names or rank them?
Do we have consensus on ranking?
I'm no for ranking because I don't feel like I have all the data yet at that point, all the information on each candidate.
I have a suggestion.
Okay, and then.
Wait, hold on, Vice Mayor?
Let's go over this
You
so
might-
that we have
you
one
might-
rule. And the
you might
last
be able to
thing
rank-
is, wouldn't it be
might
better
be able-
and efficient to submit these names to the Human Resources Director and the manager no later than the 26th? So when we get together on the 26th, we already have the 5. Wouldn't that make
You might
sense
be
just
able to-
counting wise?
Sure, I have no problem with submitting them to.
Otherwise, if I want to submit my 5 tomorrow.
Tomorrow, absolutely. Yeah, that's not a
that way,
problem.
By the time the 26th, he gives us a ranking of the 25 as per our first cup. Or let's don't call it ranking, the top 5.
From each of us.
That way we gain a little time for more discussion on each of those 5 on the 26th. Preliminary discussion.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Vice Mayor, what was your point?
My suggestion was that of the 5, if you don't want to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you might say that 3 of these 5, you'd be really happy to be number 1, and the next 2, you'd be number 2, or some combination like that, because more than likely, more than of those 5, at least one of them, more than one of them, you'd be happy to be the manager. So it doesn't be an exact 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can say these 2 are number 1, these are 2 2s, and this is a 3, or whatever.
All right.
Anybody can do whatever they want. I don't expect that I'm going to be in a position to rank ordinally 5, but something like that's possible. If anybody feels that they're ready to
Just rank them all number 1 and you're good.
My only
It's like the Ed London move with the dots at the strategic planning.
one question about process that didn't come up. The public is interested in this.
Well, right.
I don't know why we're talking about 4 months. We got our advertisement out on the day before Thanksgiving. We had received a number of resumes in a couple of weeks before that time, and the bulk.
No, when the manager gave notice after the election, right?
I don't know when she gave notice, but this process, and so far as I can tell,
After the budget before, you're right, it was October. It was October.
this process has been going on.
Was it?
This process has been going on in a systematic way with public discussion about the process since approximately the week before Thanksgiving, I think.
Right.
Might have been our first.
That's
meeting.
right. We pushed it off. So we were, okay. So fair enough until we had the full councils situated.
So my question specifically is, we've got 52 submissions. They're not posted in a way that's accessible to the public insofar as I know. Should they be at every step of this process so that people can see who these people are?
Juan, are they accessible? Are the resumes accessible, Juan, to the general public?
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I was trying to unmute.
I unmuted you. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'm sorry if you heard something you shouldn't hear.
I've heard it before.
Juan, you're fired.
I apologize. The resumes are, I've provided them to Islander, to some individuals that have requested it, but it's not accessible to the public, but if that's your
make
desire,
them accessible.
we
Yeah,
can.
I think, the resumes, I think, should be accessible. Certainly their personnel files, as far as, references and all that stuff, maybe not, the testing, maybe not, but yeah, I would like people to be able to access the resumes.
Mayor,
I think not the testing. Not the
testing. No, not the testing, but
Is the headhunter on here by any chance?
there is no headhunter right now.
Not the headhunter, but the Berkeley group.
Berkeley
Are they
group?
on here?
I don't believe so,
Okay.
but
Mayor, we could make the resumes accessible. Leave
yeah,
it
I
at-
think that, absolutely. Residents should be able to see who the next manager will be.
I just would have to redact the ones of those who are have been in the police force. I believe
their
I need
home
to
addresses?
redact.
Yeah, of
Yes.
course. Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
I would ask Chad. I would just follow
Yeah,
up.
have Chad, right.
really quick.
Chad, if you could weigh in on that.
Chad, are we good on this?
I'm sorry, I was reading something.
On resumes, on the applicants for manager, their resumes being accessible to the public.
Yeah, it's a public record.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
All right, so
Okay, so we understand 5 on the 26th. The framework is to have, by the 23rd, have all the information back from the Berkeley group. And then March 2nd would be our day to have all of them in front of the public.
and then from there we'll decide what day we want to make a decision.
Correct.
Mayor, if I just may add, and Juan and I have already talked about this, the resumes are public record, but there may be certain candidates that have certain information that can be
Has to be redacted.
because of their previous or current
Understood.
positions.
No,
So
yeah,
we-
Juan
we
said that
review-
to us.
Yeah, so we review all of them, and then if it has to be redacted, we'll put out whatever it is for redacted.
That would be lovely. All right. Do we have an understanding and consensus of council? All right.
Yes.
Let's move forward. Thank you all. And again, I appreciate your understanding.
Mayor, I was muted. I wanted to ask you because we do these consensus and then the poor clerk doesn't understand, and neither can I. My suggestion was sort of up and down about trying to get it in before the 26th, whether it's a day or two, so that when we meet on the 26th, we have the top 5.
Well, anybody
So
can
let's say
hand
by
it
the
in.
25th.
Yeah, you want to say the
That way we
25th?
have a little
Everybody has to have their names.
Fine,
listed.
everybody has to have their 5 in by the 25th, so there's a list in front of us on the 25th.
Thank you.
No worries.
And Juan, you will be able to reach out to any council members that are not cutting that deadline and make sure that they get it in.
Use bad language.
Remind them.
I'm sorry, please.
You don't have to apologize, but
In advance. In
it's
advance.
saucy. It's 2021 here in Key Biscayne. All right. Okay, next item, please.
I'm sorry, so no more than a list of 5 to be sent to Juan Gutierrez on January 25th.
On or before January 25th.
On or before. I'm sorry, I'm having problems hearing this evening. There's banging on the walls. And so
Who's
I
banging
can't,
on the wall?
I don't know, but it's
We'll send some police over.
very distracting.
Wait, you're in the village hall. What goes on at night in the village hall? Ever since new managers,
haunted.
things are getting a little dicey over there.
Haunted.
I don't
What's
know
going
if
on?
it's construction. I'm not sure.
Okay, no worries.
I'm having trouble hearing, so I apologize.
No worries. All right. Anyway, let's move on to the next item, please.
The next item is EV car charging for Fernwood Road parking.
Right. And this was a discussion that we'd had a little while ago. If Roland Samimi's, I'll defer to the manager to explain what's going on with this.
So I did reach out to Roland and Jake, and they're both ready to speak on it. I think we're ready to move based on council decisions. So first to Roland. Roland?
Yeah, this was an opportunity to try a pilot for EV charging to basically send a message that we're promoting electrification. And it also speaks specifically to a short-term goal that was established in the 2018 sustainability plan, specifically short-term goal 8S5, provide preferred parking to electric vehicles and golf carts and public parking spots. In talking to Jake, we thought that the renovation of the Fernwood parking area would be a good place to try out a pilot to see what kind of data we could collect on usage, and if the usage numbers supported the deployment of other EV chargers, then at that point we could use that as a basis to sort of broaden the EV charging network across the village. And so working with the resiliency coordinator, Kat Kolpa, we gathered information on a variety of EV charging companies, and then made a recommendation for one in particular, Blink, because that was one of the only companies that offered a 1-year pilot, pilot type agreement. And we could deploy a EV charger in this location at no cost to the village. And any electricity usage that was coming through that charger location would be reimbursed to the village. And so that was the reason why we were sort of putting this forward.
What are the thoughts? Does anybody? I mean, I think it's a good idea. I know I've had a number of people requesting it. Are there concerns? Are there? I think it's a good idea to give it a shot and see where we are, and move into the future, encouraging electric cars.
It's just one of these opportunities to put action behind policy. We've been talking about doing these things for a long time.
Okay. Anybody have any objections, or can we get them? Can we? Okay. Let's get going. Thank you, Roland. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Mayor, Manager.
Make it so.
Please. Next item.
The next item is Dogs on the Beach. Councilmember Laredo.
Isn't that a drink?
Just very briefly, and I already, in anticipation, I spoke with the manager. But there's the few times I get down to the beach over the last couple of weeks, been a number of dogs that are obviously, in violation of all the standards. And unfortunately, people recognize me. And the condominium side, some of you who don't live there, obviously, since we have to live with a lot of people, we're not a house. Nobody wants to complain directly to the violator, but there sits visibly a councilman, and they go to him to say, why don't you enforce this thing? And they become, anonymous, which is okay. The police has a hard time. We have limited resources. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a support. Yesterday, by the way, FAA finalized new guidelines, formal guidelines on airplanes. The abuses are enormous, and it's ruining everybody's travel plans because people had pigs and everything else on airplanes. So, the police has a tough job of, going up to the person, and they say the emotional support, whatever they ever. But at the end of the day, they're violating the law and the ordinances and everything else. And we have these posted violations. And as you know, I'm from a very strict school of strict enforcement. And when you start cheating on any rule, it gives you a license, all of us, including me, what we call the slippery slope. If I get away with that, I'll get away with this, and I get away with that. And there's a lot of literature and a lot of legal thesis about that kind of human behavior. And I think we're on that slippery slope. I'm not picking on dog owners. I don't take my little 4-pound Prom, and I've seen some real big dogs. And also the responsibility with the chief, I think, and manager is going to talk to the condominium associations, who most of the time also have their own security, and they need to, and almost in front of each one of them, there's the signage with the ordinances from the village. You cannot have a dog on the beach. And everybody looks the other way. I just think I am from the school, if you cannot enforce it, it's better.
Why have it on the books? So what's your recommendation, Councilmember? Because I support you. I agree. I get the same, and I too am a dog owner, and I would love to take my dog on the beach, but it's against the law, and so I won't take my dog on the beach. So what's your recommendation? What are you requesting?
I think the chief was working on something. I think we either enforce it. I think we ought to reach out. We lost a lot of time on this because of the transition, the previous manager, but I think we need to reach out to the condominium associations and also put out either through our website or all our information that we are going to stage an enforcement, a strong enforcement. I know we have to coordinate with the other jurisdiction, perhaps, but we need to come out front of this thing because it's growing. And again, for some of us who are in the stratosphere, talking about bond issues and everything else, with a regular taxpayer, it's little things like this that really matter in their lives. You know, they go there to have their Sunday quiet and reading, and, you know, their dogs coming up and down and barking and all that stuff you all know. So my suggestion is to have management give us a suggestion. I think he has some ideas, and we have to have an enforcement. You know, they're very nice about giving people a warning, but you'll never see them again. It's very hard to, there's no record. So it's a problem defined. Okay. I don't have a solution.
Mr. Manager, do you have some solutions to recommend?
I have a quick discussion. Speaking to the current chief, there were 19 total calls last year of complaints on dogs on the beach. 90% of those calls resulted in people claiming that they were service dogs. I've spoken with our attorneys, obviously under ADA code, et cetera, HIPAA. We're not allowed to challenge once they say it's a service dog. The other 10% of those we dealt with literally took their dogs off the beach, claimed innocence, that they weren't aware of the ordinance, et cetera, and they complied. Those 19 calls for us to respond probably do not reflect how many times people have dogs on the beach.
Right.
And I'm really aware of that, and so is the chief. We have cops out on the beach now 7 days a week on our ATV. And I've asked Chief Capone to direct them to challenge each and every person who has a dog on the beach. Again, I want to make it very clear. If they respond with a service challenge.
Just out of curiosity, Chief, is it just verbal? They say this is a service dog?
That's all they have to do. Now, understand.
Do they have to have it on a leash, though?
They always have to have it on a leash.
Okay, so we at least can get them for failure to have it on a leash. So start tagging them with that.
And the chief has assured me that his officers will deal with that part of it. That aside, if they claim service, whether it's emotional or real, if it's real, the dog has to be certified, wears some type of a jacket that makes it obvious it's a complete service and a real service dog. The other side is the emotional support dog, and all they have to do is say it's my support. So
no, it's not. No, it's not, Chief. Sorry, I have. They have to. The leash has a little tag. People cannot simply claim arbitrarily that it's support. There is a whole bunch of registration that they have to show you. They have to show the police. Support is one thing, and
I'm
They
not
have to
talking
actually
about,
tell you.
I'm not talking about a true service dog, sir. You're absolutely right. If it's a legitimate, certified service dog, but an emotional support dog does not require that based on my conversations with our legal team and based on the work that I've done in the past with this issue involving HIPAA.
Again, I just want to be clear. They do have to have that dog on a leash. If it's not on a leash, that's a violation.
Be on a leash, period.
Okay.
I don't care what kind of dog.
Well, then that's where you tag them because the dogs aren't on leashes on the beach. Councilmember Moss?
Yeah, two questions. So you're saying that an emotional support dog falls under these HIPAA and ADA rules?
Yes, sir, it
does. Chad, you're saying no?
No. I think what Chuck is saying, and he and I went through this, is that when it's a true service dog, we can ask questions of the individual, but we can't ask them to produce documentation. So there's two questions when you are faced with this that you can ask. Is the dog a service animal required? Is the dog a service animal required because of a disability? And what work or task has the dog been trained to perform? You're not allowed to request documentation for the dog. You can't require that the dog demonstrate the task, or you can't inquire about the nature of the person's disability. I think what the chief is saying is that it's very difficult for his officers to, they can ask those questions, but they can't go any further. So technically, a service animal meets that definitions. An emotional support dog does not, because an emotional support dog, it says, here, I'll read it to you. Are emotional support, therapy, comfort, or companion animals considered service animals under the ADA? The term is no. It's no because they have not been trained to perform a specific job or task. They don't qualify as a service animal under the ADA. However, some governments allow people to take such animals, service animals, into public places. The county code, I believe, talks in terms of service animals and not emotional support animals.
So the second question I have is, are we able to allow those types of dogs on there only by permission? So basically you would have to go to the police office and get a permit that you have an emotional support dog and you let them take it in these places. Emotional support, I'm not talking about the certified ones. The certified ones, I know those are off limits, and but if it's emotional support, the police can say, okay, well, you have to go to the station, you have to get the thing and all the stuff, and the person might be like, you know what, I'm just going to get off the beach. It's not worth it to try to do all this.
I don't know. I'd have to look at that.
And then somebody who actually lives here and really needs it, they would probably go out of the way and get this permit.
Yes,
the permit could be free. I don't know, but
the HIPAA and the questioning about the disability and all of that is correct, but there is, just like a driver's license, there is a prima facie document and or thing that is worn around the dog that tells you if that's legitimate or not. Do you agree with that?
The ADA does not require service animals to wear a vest, ID tag, or harness. I mean,
so
you
then
may
the
see
airport of the United States of America have a whole separate set of rules?
I'm reading to you what the ADA off the federal government's website.
No, but I mean, let's talk about our experiences. When we travel, we have to get our dogs pre-cleared by the airline, and we have to show upon arrival and check-in the documentation, and including that on ASU. And we cannot do it on our beach.
I don't know if there's a separate federal law relating to aviation. I don't know.
But I think you need to read up on this, because my council members, look, I'm just telling you, I can smell the problem that's going to grow. I know that police always responds to responses or to complaints, but this is a grossly understated complaint because of how I started my comments. Condominium people don't want to complain because they have to convivir together. I just sense the anger growing, and we need to be somehow proactive, nice, but proactive. Perhaps we can start, Mayor, with further exploring this thing. I think
I think that's
but maybe a PR campaign.
Well, let's
get started so that they know that we're trying to do something. And when we hit a legal wall, we can at least say we tried, but we couldn't do any more. And to literally start specifically, as your question, with condominium associations. And Ignacio, you can help. I know that there's the condominium association group, etc., so that they can also start patrolling, because as you walk into the beach, you usually go through some sort of, each building has a patrol. I'm just saying we need to show at least our efforts to deal with
I understand what you're saying. Councilmember McCormick.
Proactively.
Councilmember Laredo, thank you for bringing this up. And I completely agree with you and share your frustrations. I also have had the same observations in terms of growing hostilities. And I think we'll probably touch on that. We heard something, I can't remember, at the beginning of the meeting, we talked about something somewhat related. Oh, the numbers on the houses. And then here we will again at our next topic when we talk about teens and behavior. But I think that what we see is many, many people on Key Biscayne have dogs, and they do not all bring them to the beach. And everyone would like to. My dog doesn't particularly like the water. I don't know that he would want to go, but other people's dogs probably want to go. And when you're sitting on the beach and you've observed the rules and you didn't bring your dog, resentment grows when you see other people with their dogs. And we all go to the beach and we all know that the numbers are far greater than are reported to the police. It's obviously a problem. And I completely support the idea of trying to come up with some way to address it, both legally and also through some sort of a campaign. With PR, I suspect that we'll probably be able to tie it into some of the other things we've talked about just in general, that we need to be looking a little bit outside of ourselves and respecting our neighbors and making the choices that are better for our community as a whole, not just for our individual selves. Everyone wants to go to the beach and enjoy it. Everyone would like to bring their dog. But as we've heard time and time again, we are denser than the city of Chicago. Our beach is just not that big yet. Thank you. Hopefully we'll have a much bigger beach soon. But for now, there just simply isn't room for that kind of living. And our dogs can go to the beach on Virginia Key. And while you might not want to drive there, that's the option that we have now. So I thank you for bringing this up. And I fully support asking the chief, both as the manager and then once again, when he moves back to the police station, to try to do what we can to up enforcement to whatever degree we can, certainly the leash law, and also to try to get some sort of PR campaign going about just obeying the laws as they are and respecting our neighbors.
Right. Agreed. And I would ask, to follow up on this, let's get some clarification legally as to what our rights are. I hate to say that, but what our rights are as a community to regulate dogs on the beach. Again, I would love to take my dog to the beach. My dog actually loves the water, but I'm not going to do it because it's against the law. So Chad, if you can work to figure out what we can do beyond enforcing the leash law, and then we can work. Then once we have a set of guidelines that we can distribute and publish, we'll get those out to the different condominium associations along the beach. And I agree. An education campaign would be very helpful as well.
Mr. Mayor, one brief comment, because I want you to understand it in the context of my philosophy, which you may disagree with, but I've been consistent since I joined this council. I truly believe more than you can, based on my experience, that we're at a crossroads in Key Biscayne. I've been there 40 years. I am telling you, we're at a crossroads that either we really force people to obey the law, or we should be all looking for another place to live. Trust me, I don't want to go further on this at this time, but I am telling you, and you guys, I know, are bored of me telling you, and I talk about all this little pieces. It's part of the same puzzle. The slippery slope, I got away with this today, and I got away with this tomorrow, and all of a sudden, everybody's in. It's a free-for-all. I do not want to live in a free-for-all society. I do not. And the law is applicable to everybody, regardless of color, height, whether they're left-handed or right-handed, and there's exceptional circumstances where policemen make judgments because they're not computers, that the human factor overwhelms that. But in general, in our home, mine for 40 years, is slipping away. And so this is dogs, but it's also this, another.
You gotta read down the agenda just a little bit further.
I just hope you understand that I'm not.
I absolutely understand what you're absolutely spot on, and we are thinking alike. You may be shocked by that, but you go down two items, and here we are. Okay, next item, please.
That is the vaccines for Key Biscayne residents. Mayor Davey.
Right. So we heard from Ed Stone, a concerned citizen, about our seniors. I, too, am concerned about our seniors. We heard from our commissioner. Our fire chief and our manager have been working together with the Community Foundation to try and put something together going forward, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. There's been a rollout, but it's been a little slow in the state of Florida. I'm very happy to report my mother was actually able to get her first shot today in New York City. So we're looking forward to seeing her for the first time in over a year and a half. Well, by the time we're able to see her. But if we could go forward with what the village is looking at and what our options may be, and I think they're looking for some guidance from council as to what we believe. Let's do it.
We should absolutely support this with as much energy and effectiveness as we can muster, because these website, these just are not working well.
I agree. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, sir. We have been working diligently to move forward on this, and I believe Chief Lang is prepared to discuss everything we've done up to date, including working with Melissa and the Community Foundation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager. Thank you. I completely concur. Many of us have spoken to Council. Chief Press and I have done a tremendous amount of work. Jessica Droyet from Communications, Roland Samimi, Todd Hofferberth, a special shout out to one of my staff members, Keith Bean, and of course the Community Foundation have been working to find ways to implement the Governor's Executive Order 2315. And what that executive order outlines is that long-term care facility residents and staff are first up on the list for vaccines, followed by individuals 65 and older, and healthcare professionals with direct contact with patient care. Just a quick snapshot, which somewhat we've talked about, just to summarize it. The current opportunities in Miami-Dade County can be found at miamidade.gov/vaccines. And as of today's situation report from emergency management, there's 8 locations in Miami-Dade counties and they need appointments. I have heard from a number of residents that it is slow. I spoke with one of you tonight that I think March was a date that you were able to get an appointment. And I am hearing some progress, but it's a little frustrating and slow. Countywide vaccines, they are up to just shy of 70,000, almost at 69. There's just shy of 10,000 are on their second shot. Just a note on the positivity rate, we're just under 10% at 9.41. Here locally, we have been able to offer our firefighter paramedics the vaccines through our partnership with the City of Miami Fire Rescue. We have about 16 of our responders vaccinated. And onto the models that we've been working on. And I want to caution us on creating any immediate expectations, but I'm confident there will be more opportunities available. And it benchmarks very similar where we were a number of months ago with testing. But the 2 models that we've been looking at are the fire rescue delivery model and a third-party delivery. These are termed by the Florida Health Department to be a closed pod. So a very targeted group, which that complies with the governor's orders. I've been almost daily on the phone with the Florida Department of Health. The model that we are talking about for delivery with fire rescue would include a partnership with the Key Biscayne Community Foundation. They would be managing our schedule. We would ideally get 2 people that are non-uniform personnel, whether they be civilian employees from the village or from the Community Foundation. They would be staffed with 4 firefighter paramedics, 1 law enforcement officer. We'd be working 10 to 11-hour days. And the capacity that we expect to start off with would be at about 30 vaccines per day, which is not a lot, which seems to, this is a slow moving process. As we get more proficient with the process, we expect to increase to 50 per day. That would bring us, and then the long shot on this with that model would be to vaccinate about 100 people per day. The location has been identified. There's some logistics to still work through. Our daily budget for personnel projected for this model of those 7 people with the 2 volunteers is $3,000 per day. And you have to recognize that that's for the first shot, if you will. So there's 2 shots. So whatever we commit to, in essence, we've got to double. That said, I want to point out, because what we experienced already, that the uniformed personnel, the firefighter, paramedics, and the law enforcement officer, per my discussions to this point, would likely be on overtime. So I just want to make that clear so that doesn't surprise anybody. And the documentation for this is extensive and pretty intense. And the assumption is that we would be reimbursed for this project, but there's no clear direction from the federal or state government on this, but we continue to have discussions about this. And so that is the fire rescue model. And in wrapping up the third-party model, I need to give credit to both the Community Foundation and Dr. Roland Samimi, who all of you know. He's been working hard to come up with some solutions. And I think you may be aware that the curative kiosk that was put out both in the village and in Calusa Park, that's an example of how we have delivered testing successfully. Well, we're in conversations with them as one option. And I know the Community Foundation is in conversations with others for a third-party delivery. But some things still need to be worked out on how to actually get the vaccines from the Department of Health for the third-party model. I'm monitoring this. I think the quickest way for us to get to market would be the fire rescue model. And a few things are pending. I had a conversation a few hours ago with the Department of Health. And so here's my recommendation, if you will, from staff, is that we pursue both models. We actually operate both models as soon as possible. We monitor demand. We encourage our residents to pursue any avenue to get the vaccines, whether it's off the key or on the key, when the time comes. And we roll back, if you will, probably the more expensive model, which is probably likely the fire rescue model, as demand is met. And so that said, I will happily open it up to any questions.
Mayor, can I have a question?
Councilmember Laredo, you're recognized.
Something I agree 100% with the chief, and the other one that I disagree, I want to ask him a question. The key words that he used, and I warn you all of my experience with now we're 15 years in the International Board of Baptist Health Systems and seeing what they're doing now. It's very careful, very dangerous for us with good intentions to create expectations that we cannot meet. It is very dangerous for us to create expectations we cannot meet. This is not like the COVID test. This is a lot more complicated. There are a lot more jurisdictions, and also, as the commissioner pointed out in between lines, a very important warning, we have an actual issue of the freezing and the temperature. So we better go slow on this, because if people think that it's on us, there's a lot of jurisdiction and confusion. Some of that confusion in terms of availability, not only the ruling today, but after January 20th, there'll be a whole new policy in terms of rolling out a number of vaccines. However, you all need to know that one of the biggest problems is the technical person who can give a shot, whether they're nurses. It's just not anybody can give a shot. So just a warning, I'm not that we need to push forward, but we need to make sure our message is clear that we're not going to assume this, because we are not in control, and that would backfire against us.
I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right.
I'm just sharing that with you because I've seen it happening at Baptist. They have a very efficient operation going on right now, and they're and that's their business. We're not in the business of medical. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try, and people want to do that. Now, I'm a little bit surprised. I like to see that the cost of the fire rescue model is $3,000 a day. If I heard that for 30 shots, did I hear that?
Yes, you did hear that. It was
$3,000 a day to
$3,000 per day. So now
So
the
how
reason
much is that per shot?
30 shots is unfortunately
You're a mathematician.
we don't have any economy of scale, and so I don't think it's realistic for us to say we're going to be doing 100 shots the first day, and so I don't know if it's going to take a few days, for us to get rolling on this. We want to get it right. You are absolutely right. We need to control expectations, and I can assure you that our staff has been talking about that. The Department of Health has been responsible for the rollout of vaccines, and they're trying to partner with hospitals and local governments to assist in the distribution of this. And so our firefighter paramedics are your medical staff. I'm giving you an option, and
But Chief, let's just focus on my question. I might be missing something. I'm not being judgmental.
Sure.
The plan, which is started, let's assume that we get all the other problems resolved, that part we all agree on, making sure our message, each one of us, not just you, the expectation issue and the complications, that this is not the COVID test sample. So erase that from your mind, because I've seen it at Baptist over the last, it's a whole new setup.
Right.
Incredible logistical undertaking.
Right.
Probably unprecedented. Okay. But 30 shots per day, $3,000 a day.
Okay, so I said on the low end, we can give 30 shots per day, and I can give you a breakdown of the cost. But I would expect that we could get to 50 shots per day. That would put the cost at $60 per shot. And on the high end, I'm projecting that we could get to 100 shots per day, and that would put it at $30 per shot. I am exactly.
Well, that's just the execution. It's not the cost of the vaccine.
There is no cost to the vaccine, sir.
Correct. So it's just the administering of up to 100. Let's say, to give you the best, is $30 per shot.
That
$3,000 a day. But maybe we gotta look at the numbers. Hopefully,
I don't have a
you're
staff.
right.
I can here's what I can make sure that I actually went with my staff, and there was 2 of our personnel that got vaccinated, and we walked through the city of Miami process and what they have been doing and what they have needed. There is a greeter that's at the door that takes your vital signs. That's a medical person. Then you go from there to a registration area, and it takes about 10 minutes to go through registration for each person. And that's a civilian can participate with that as long as they're trained well and doing it correctly. Then I have 2 people that are providing the administration and dosages. Then there needs to be somebody to monitor the patient after they have been administered a shot. And then, this is something that we don't want to mess up. And I have a supervisor, if you will, that's providing oversight. And because of the craze of sorts that has come along with this, we believe we need law enforcement on the scene. So there'll be a police officer there. And so that accounts for those personnel. And this is not a cheap endeavor. It's not quick. And if you find a cheaper way or you don't want to do this, that's fine with me. This is not the business I want to be in, but this is the services that we demand.
All right, Vice Mayor, I see you waving your hand.
I had the shot at Jackson. It was very efficient. He had an appointment. He came downstairs to the rehab building. When they were ready, they waited about 15 minutes past the point. You then they asked you questions. Took about 5 minutes. You then went down, sat at another desk, not chair, I should say. You filled out a form and then you took your shirt off, or that shoulder over. They gave you a shot. the total time from the waiting in time, the 2 shots, then you had to wait 15 minutes to put you in another area, and I was out of there in 45 minutes. But actual time of somebody injecting was about 5 minutes, which would go with about 12 people an hour, which would give you, as Eric said, about 100 people a day, an 8-hour shift. They had no police. They had 2 clerks and 1 person who gave you the shot.
That's police.
Was a nurse. No police, no supervisors, and then one area where you just had seats to sit at. And then they gave you some water and they gave you something else and sent you home. Very efficient and very less expensive people than Eric is talking about.
Yeah, I see the manager. Mr. Manager?
So I understand, Ed, what you're talking about. And Jackson is a huge hospital. They've got processes, procedures. This is just the village of Key Biscayne trying to articulate and be prepared to provide a service. All we're doing is bringing this to council. If you all agree, this is the process that Fire Rescue has provided us. This is following the procedures of Miami-Dade County. I was on a manager's meeting today. Those procedures are the same in other communities that are using their fire rescue personnel, etc. It's strictly up to you all to make that decision. I just wanted everybody to know that we've been working really hard on being prepared to bring this to the table. We want to make sure we do it the right way. And at the end of the day, it's your decision.
Councilmember Moss, then Councilmember McCormick.
Thank you for being proactive on this. Quick question though, is there a way, would it be more beneficial maybe to reach out to some of the doctor's office out here to see if we can work with them, partner with them, help them in any way and let them administer it? Maybe it's more efficient that way. But I don't know if anybody looked into that or if that even makes any sense, but you know, they do have people who can give them, give the vaccines, and maybe, I don't even know if they need help from the government in this way or not, but maybe we can be a bridge of getting the people to them so that they could administer it.
Here's what I equate this to. And I think we are all familiar with this. When there's a hurricane and the power goes out for days, you see the government involved with distribution of a pod, which is food, water, and ice. And why are we doing that? We're doing that because the box stores aren't open, the supermarket's not open. And so we're supplementing the infrastructure. So this is such a mass rollout that there's not enough, the vaccines are not to the doctor's offices and the pharmacies and the CVS's even yet. There are everybody is working towards getting vaccines. They're trying to figure out how to get, I believe, doctors' offices and third parties, the more mass distribution. It's just not there yet. And the goal for one of our goals has been to try to get that third party that, as you all are pointing out, and it's crystal clear to me as well, that maybe it is more efficient, possibly, especially if our numbers aren't that high.
But Eric, aren't the time that we get the vaccination, wouldn't they be getting the vaccination basically the same time too? I mean, CVS.
Not necessarily.
It's taken me a week to get through kind of the paperwork and the different conversations that I've needed to have to get to the point where I'm tentatively approved to get to basically, for delivery. And right now there's no vaccines available for delivery. And so, I do believe that this is part of the distribution model. They're looking at mass distribution, in my opinion, first, before it trickles down to the.
And it seemed like from what the commissioner said, it seemed like they're looking already at Walgreens and CVS to start distributing these, because that would be also a mass distribution, which we have a CVS here. So it seems like they would be also high up on the list of getting a vaccination, or ability to administer vaccinations very quickly. Maybe even before us, who knows?
Well, that is correct. CVS, we've reached out to them. Jessica actually spoke to them, and we've tried to reach out to some of the higher ups there. CVS and Walgreens are focused on the residential care facilities, and they are actively working throughout the state. So everybody's got a little bit of a different role in this. And if you go back 10 months where we were with testing, I think in a month we're going to be having a different conversation And if you will, I don't, all the fire rescues, I'm not choosing to be in this business. This is an option. If you choose to take it, we're ready to go.
Councilmember McCormick. Oh, I'm sorry, Roland Samimi, you look like you wanted to say something before.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I'm continuing my conversation with the folks at Curative, because they too have been in very close communication with the county. The county has already agreed to accept their software platform as a registration platform and a tracking platform for the administration of vaccines. I've talked to Curative about whether or not they would be able to administer vaccines for the village if the village were to be able to obtain vaccines. And they said that they could do that at around a cost of $25 per vaccine. However, they also do exercise the ability to charge insurance companies. So in a way, if we could actually get a hold of vaccines, which is the big challenge right now, there is a mechanism for them to be able to administer them for us as the third party. I've already sent an agreement template to Chad to review. They're also going to send us an MOU, basically to have these things in place should then we be able to secure vaccines through Florida Shots. But again, speaking to Chief Lang's points, the main challenge is really getting the vaccines. I mean, if Chief Lang is able to get vaccines through Florida Shots, then basically the fire department has to, if I understand correctly, the fire department has to administer them. If we apply for vaccines through Florida Shots as the Village of Key Biscayne, and we have an agreement with Curative, then I think there is a way that we could potentially get shots and then Curative would administer them. So that's just, it's an avenue of pursuit that we're just continuing to explore. Chief Lang and I have a call with Curative tomorrow to refine our understanding of the details from their end and what it would take. And we're just trying to get as many different pieces in place and clarified so that when we have access to vaccines, we know which ones we know which tool to grab.
Okay. Councilmember McCormick.
So thank you for working on this. Obviously, this is really important to everyone. And I imagine this, although I take Councilmember Laredo's point that this is obviously significantly more complicated than the COVID testing, it's probably going to follow a similar path the way it rolls out. So my first question, I think, is when we're looking right now at the population that is eligible for vaccines, we're really looking at our senior population, and I'm wondering if we've done any type of cost analysis of of just trying to help our seniors get their appointments and get to those appointments, as opposed to setting up a distribution of vaccines for seniors right now through our fire department, who I have no doubt would do an excellent job. But when we're paying overtime because of our staff limitations, obviously that comes at a very high price. And is it possible, have we looked at the cost of just trying to facilitate and help our senior population get the shots through the regular channels now, and including getting them there, those that need that help?
Yes, they are looking at that. I'm sorry.
But
Go ahead, Chief.
do we have like a side-by-side analysis, I guess is my...
So I'll just speak on that really quick. Melissa has been working through the foundation to provide transportation, set up for making appointments, et cetera, doing the amazing things that she did, similar to what happened when we wanted to get tested. So this is a public-private, work in progress, and we're all working on different entities, different possibilities. We just needed some direction from council, B, to let you all know that we're looking at every possibility to get this done for not only our seniors, but getting past our seniors, actually take care of the rest of our citizens once that vaccine has been approved from that moment on. So I wish Melissa was here tonight to talk about this, but if she is, Melissa, raise your hand. And if not, I can assure you we'll get back to you on what we're doing through the foundation to help us do just that, and maybe not cost, work ourselves.
Again, I want to reiterate, this is to give us more avenues, right? We obviously want to choose the least costly to the village and the most efficient to the village. But I would ask that we continue to explore, ideally, having either Curative do it through the insurance and having them set up because they are, it seems they have the capabilities and they can be administering, or having the community foundation continue to set up appointments. And if they can get people to the hospitals, that's great. But I think we should be exploring all avenues possible to get, particularly our seniors and our at-risk populations. We have a lot of people in this community who are either seniors, which is defined as 65 or older, or have pre-existing conditions that may make them more susceptible to the worst outcomes from this disease. So I would just ask that we give them the guidance to go forward and continue to make plans to do what they can in the best interest. I agree, it's expensive. I mean, there's no question. $3,000 a day is a lot of money. So hopefully we don't have to get to that. But if that does get some of our people vaccinated, if that gets us down the road toward opening up again, toward allowing our people more freedom, I think, $100 per vaccination, while expensive for our residents, I think it's worth it at this time. And we could, again, as the chief said, we'd be able to wean off as other options came up. That's the most, I'll call it the drastic measure, right? Having our staff perform overtime hours to administer the doses. But until such time as we have other options that are available to us, we should be exploring all potential options. Councilmember Laredo?
Yeah, Mayor, my comments about the cost is diverting the attention. I probably shouldn't have brought it up from what I think is sound advice at the very beginning of this meeting from Ed Stone. I am telling you, I don't want to bother with the details, but I've been following what Baptist is doing. And the best suggestion is what Councilwoman McCormick has suggested. And if you listen to Ed Stone's personal experience, he got up at 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. That is what we can actually do now. I do not like to ramp up expenses, either $3,000 or $100 with no visible possible result. It's so much of it is out of our control that we can ramp up and do nothing and then look like fools. That creates also the problem of expectations. But today, I think if we can steer at least until, like you said, Mayor, they're parallels, we can find a solution. If somebody comes to us and tells us, we have 30,000 or 10,000 vaccines for you, I'll pay $200 a day, so that you're clear, to get it in Key Biscayne. But in the meantime, the real world, and the world that Stone saw, and a lot of people, is the one where we can address today by trying to take off that, and also the very challenging role of transportation. But we can probably address that because of their, getting to their appointments and back safely.
Well, that's kind of my
point. That should be our priority, and continue to work with the chief. But I like to see the bird in the hand before I set up their infrastructure.
But I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
I agree.
They're not mutually exclusive. I agree with you. I think that is the best way. And if we can get them out, we can get them appointments, get them over there, great. But at the same time, let's keep continuing to see what we can do on the other avenues. If one comes available, great. If it doesn't, I agree with you. I think the focus should be on the easiest and the most realistic, which of course is getting them appointments and getting them transportation to the hospitals, no question. But if other options become available, as they become available, I want us, I guess, to give direction to the manager and the chief to move forward with those things as they become possible. And not later on say, whoa, we didn't know, you didn't tell us. I think that's why they're telling us it's $3,000 a day for this worst case scenario. They're trying to give us all of the facts. But my point is, let them go. Whatever they can do, I completely agree with you as to what's the most realistic and probably the best option for us. But give them, I give them a blank check, if you will. I'm going there. I'll give them a blank check on this because I want
pandemic.
On the
why not? Somebody else's money
Yeah, it's not Ed. It's our residents' lives. That's what it's about, and I want to get them vaccinated as soon as possible. So that's my position.
So the premise that we land with is helping people get appointments if it's possible to do so.
Absolutely.
Which is necessary because the appointment process through the websites is very difficult, and it's catch as catch can.
Of course.
Helping with transportation. And if there's an opportunity to acquire a quantity of vaccines dedicated to this community, should take advantage of getting that quantity.
100%.
Then we have the storage refrigeration question, but these people are working to figure these
They're
things.
working on that with the city of Miami and the counties, I understand it. So
let's do it.
All right. Are we all in agreement? Thank you guys for working on this. Thank you to Melissa for doing this. Let's keep at it. This has been one heck of a 10 year. It does feel like 10 years, 10-month period. All right. Next item.
Next item, police response to uptick in vandalism, underage driving, and other issues. Mayor Davey.
Right. So Chief Press, before he became Manager Press, and I had conversations about this. And to Councilmember Laredo's point, we need to be tougher on these folks. It seems that we're seeing, I can tell you that on Ocean Lane Drive, we have had a big problem on the beach easement with kids destroying the concrete walls. Just going in, I don't know what kind of giggles you get out of it, but they're going in and destroying that. We're seeing, we continue to see too many, particularly during the holidays, I saw way too many kids who appeared to be far under the age of 16. And by far, I mean 13, 14 years old, driving around in golf carts. And we seem to be seeing, just a sense. There was an attack on the green where some kids, an alleged attack, I'll leave it there, where some kids, middle schoolers were harassing a 9-year-old on a swing. It was not, I believe that the manager put out a statement about this, that it was not a sexual molestation, but it was certainly, it was an egregious act. And, what we've got right now is we've got a segment of our population who are feeling like we have no say over them as a community, that our police have no right to enforce the law with them. Our police officers have really, in many cases, bent over backwards, taking the kids home, trying to explain things to parents, and the parents turn on the police officers, telling, how dare you do this to my child? And the fact is, we live in a community that has laws, and these laws must be upheld. And we have police officers whose duty it is to uphold those laws that we have elected to put in place. And what I would like us to do as a body is to follow up really on talking about the dogs on the beach and say, enough's enough. We're going to get tough with these people. We've been talking about it, but we need to be strict. We need strict enforcement. If people aren't doing things that are wrong, if kids are stealing in Winn-Dixie or the 7-Eleven, make an example of them. Let's start really coming down and let people know that they can't just do these things, because they do start growing. They advance from, it's not really hurting to anybody, to, it's just kids being kids, to people being hurt and things being stolen and things getting worse. And to Councilmember Laredo's point, I haven't lived here 40 years, but I can tell you that things are changing. And when kids get a certain attitude, kids will be kids. I did stupid things when I was a kid, but I can tell you that I was in fear for my life because my baseball coach was the chief of police. So I never wanted to do anything that put that in jeopardy. And I think we have too many parents who are not taking responsibility for their children in this community. And it's time for them to step up. And if they're not going to take the situation seriously, they need to know that we are. And that's how we're going to proceed going forward.
Whether they do or not, we have to.
That's right.
I think that we've had discussions over a fairly long period of time dealing with corrective intervention, but recognizing, I think Councilmember Laredo might have been referring to what I call the broken windows.
Right.
Things have really degraded civilly in this community, and it's apparent to all of us, and we just need to intervene in a more effective way.
Great. Councilmember McCormick?
I'm not sure that I could say it better than you did. Thank you for that. I think the manager / chief knows 100% where I stand on this. For 4 years, I have said the same things over and over again, and I have certainly watched the situation, I think, get worse. And maybe it has to do with our population of kids. If you look at the grades that were larger in the school, getting older, and so there are more of them. But, you see it, people talk about it all the time, and you see it when you drive around. We have packs of kids not adhering to mask rules, certainly not adhering to rules of how old you have to be to drive a golf cart. But again, I would echo that the part that is the most disturbing to me is the reaction when corrected. They feel very, very entitled to their bad behavior, and there's egregious, sort of brazen interaction with adults in our community in CVS and in Winn-Dixie. And certainly it is not all of the kids on the island, and it isn't all of the parents on the island. And, all kids will misbehave, and we need to remind people that this stuff is not okay, and to let parents who aren't aware of what their kids are doing, aware of what's happening when they're not at home. And we have to get a handle on this. And I think that we definitely see, Councilmember Laredo, this is what I was alluding to earlier. We see that growing resentment of, I don't let my kid go out, or my kid behaves, but why should they have to when these other ones don't? And it's gone on too long. So I want to echo my support to the police officers who certainly do not have an easy job in front of them. This isn't pleasant work, but it is so necessary, and I think we really need their help. So just, Chief, if you could pass it along through the ranks, that this is what we need, this is what we're asking for, and that we've got their back.
Councilmember Moss?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it short, but you also have my full support for enforcing the law. And it's not just children, it's adults, it's everybody, I think. And like Councilmember Laredo said, nobody's above it, not even the mayor or any council member. So you need to, you have I look right at you. But you have my full support. And I really enjoyed when you guys did this. I think you guys did like a strict enforcement. And I think that a lot of people in this community really appreciated it. And I think we should do it all the time. So you have my full support.
All right, so that's really all I want to say about that.
Yeah, to put it in content, when we created this beautiful village 30 years ago, we never anticipated having this problem. And I know that the police has acquired from that spirit, the spirit of cooperation, almost inheriting or taking on a role as almost social workers, which is not in their job description. And we need to take that burden off them. They need to be law enforcement officers, unfortunately. It goes against the original dream, but it's across, societies go through periods where we have to decide, and it's really, really bad. And I'm not interested, and we're not also in parenting counseling. And if you can't handle it, then move out of Key Biscayne. But the message has to be consistent, and it has to be, so that there's no way. So I think today could be the beginning of a new, and it's for the better. It's not for harassment. No. It's appreciation. It's for kindness. It's for the Key Biscayne nights we talked about. And this is how it's manifested. I love it that we as of today, we've charged the administration to take a step in that direction with the quality of work that you do.
Mr. Manager,
the timing is right, Chief. It really is.
Mr. Manager, do you have something to say?
I hear you loud and clear, and I've already had discussions with the police chief. And we will be bringing back your plan. But not only that, we've already implemented something. I won't bore you with those details tonight, but they have been kicking butt and taking names, to be really honest with you. And we'll continue to do so. And I'll provide you those information bits as they come along.
Perfect. All right.
Just one qualification. I think it's just an afterthought, but there is a community service aspect to policing. This isn't about removing the kind of healthy discretion that cops have learned to exercise. What we're talking about is we have an enforcement problem, violation problems, and we need to be less lenient and more strict.
That's right.
That's
what we're talking about.
Kaplan, I think you know that our police department has always been respectful of people's rights.
Yeah.
To a very large extent. I know that Chief Capone understands that. So does his staff. So will I when I get back to my job, as I've done it before. But there comes a time when you can do enforcement. Key Biscayne Police Department has always done it the right way. That's why we're never in trouble when it comes to lawsuits and issues like that. We know what we have to do. You've given us direction. Chief Capone is already all over this thing, and so is his staff. And I'll report back to you at our 26th council meeting, or Chief Capone will, on the results so far where we're at.
Perfect. Move to
Thank
adjourn.
you.
Move to adjourn. Oh, you stole my thunder.
Second.
Everybody have a good night.
Good evening.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.